Thanks.
Stepped on your foot.
My maiden name is Cheeks and I live up to it.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
I am not the most graceful.
Are you surviving tournament season? Crazy, busy?
I haven't worked any of them.
Oh, well, then you're surviving then, but it'll be a lot of boats in and out, right?
Fun though, you know, it's guys
We moved
came
it.
from
Yeah.
somewhere that fished all the tournaments from Florida and they kicked everybody's butt.
And then if I can get that. I took, I was like.
Yeah.
Tanya shot, but Kelly
You
said he
actually
was
hit it the wrong
in the
way.
pier,
If
so
you
I
like
was
reach
waiting.
for it, you
Oh,
can
okay.
He could walk in any minute,
It
so.
goes right over.
I was wondering, I was like, how like,
Iffy. Trust me.
okay, what is?
The handle has helped me. Don't tippy it on my laptop. I don't usually have my laptop, but I do today.
Tanya's not here. We can use some of her stuff.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Darla, that's helpful.
Yes,
I appreciate that.
that's what I usually do.
Yeah, that is, that's what I was looking for.
Yes.
I'm just waiting a few minutes for Kelly. He said he was on his way.
Kelly.
People are worried about that.
Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many calls we get at City Hall on that.
Put a
Every
mount
other
on that
backyard.
pole right there. Don't you think that look cool? Full mount in the back.
I bet Nikki's gotten 50 calls on
That's
that
getting
today.
revved up, but we took care of the alligators, come down and visit us.
I just got an email, I just opened up an email that said, you are a genius and need to resign immediately, death upon you.
Over the alligator,
Wow.
man.
I didn't call him, Tex Parks Wildlife.
That's harsh.
We need to hire some alligator police.
My nephew's coming. Gamble in the major. Gamble.
Is?
Yeah. He's out of San
He's a
Diego.
big boy.
Gamble. He was snooping around.
I think they got a plan. Yeah, I think, I just talked to her.
Yeah, because
I think they got a plan.
Good drone shot of the whole thing today, and they were kind of looking for him, but they didn't see him. They're up in the.
You know how many calls a day are
I got
Get her the-
2 Friday, 1 Sunday,
As soon
1.
as he edits
Yeah,
them,
no, but.
you can see that.
So
It's pretty cool.
Big.
Death upon you.
Oh, that guy. He's big. There's another one. Probably 10 or 11. A couple of babies.
Honored.
I was like, I don't need all these.
I actually am not leaving now.
I don't like them.
Yeah.
Except for when they're over there where they belong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah, you
Kelly.
don't need to be lit.
I know.
It
I
must be
don't
really
need to
late.
be driving.
So you'll be here the next couple days.
Oh, here he comes.
There he is. Okay, good. I waited long enough.
Oh, I am gonna start learning tomorrow, Jeep's ready. Bet he's gonna want a binder. You want a binder of the budget? You want a binder? Yeah. Do we have an extra one?
You can have mine.
We're happy to share too.
But there's, oh,
That's not have the RD, because I had to give that away.
Oh, you did?
I had to give it to, oh, actually,
I have RDC here because I handed it to them all.
no, I had to run to Pam,
Oh,
the actual,
yeah, I handed her one.
okay.
Okay, we're gonna get started. We're gonna call the city council special meeting Monday, August 12th at 5 p.m. to order. Our first item is citizen comments and reports. At this time, I have one, and that is Cliff Strain. So if you want to come up, Cliff.
I just wanted to kind of fill you all in on what's going on at the museum. We've been really busy. We've had a pretty good showing of tourists in the summer. The chapel has been getting a lot of attention. We've been doing on the average about 6 private tours on the chapel. So what that little building is bringing, sometimes people are coming in just to see the chapel. And we're working with Texas Monthly currently. They're going to feature it. We have a freelance writer that got the okay from Texas Monthly to do an article on it. So that'll be coming out soon. And then we have the plein air paint off, which is coming off on the 9th, this month, the 9th, or actually September 9th through the 14th. It's where we have artists from out of town and in town come in and paint all week. And then we have a show at the end of that week. And of course, the Surf Fest is going to be on the 28th. So we're kind of hitting the ground running on the fall activities, and thought we'd just like you to know what's going on. And again, we appreciate all the support that the city has given us this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clark. All right, item 3 is items for consideration. Item A is an ordinance, third and final reading, amending chapter 21 subdivisions, section 21-127 lot dimensions, and chapter 21, section 21-243 minimum requirements, and providing for severance reading and effective date.
So we made the changes at the last meeting, but they were written in before, so no changes have been made since then. None are expected.
All right, any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve the third and final reading of the ordinance amendments to chapter 21. Second.
All right, any further discussion? Grant, please call the roll.
Councilmember Krueger,
Yes.
Councilmember Crawford,
Yes.
Councilmember Christensen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitten,
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, item B, ordinance, third and final reading, amending chapter 25 zoning of the Port Aransas Code of Ordinances regarding density and lot area in the existing developed properties and providing for severance, reading, and effective date.
This is just the second portion of the same ordinance change.
Any discussion, questions for Nicole? All right, can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the third and final reading of the ordinance amending chapter 25.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Fran, please call the roll.
Councilmember Christensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Crawford,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitten,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Krueger,
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you, guys. Item C, presentation, general discussion, and possible action on the City of Port Aransas proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Go, Carla, go.
Don't know how y'all want to attack this tonight. First thing, I think maybe we want to talk tax rate and how the budget was built first, maybe?
I think that would be good.
Okay, so you have a proposed budget in your book. And I did give you a cover letter trying to go through each individual fund and highlight items in the fund. And then at the back, you have a listing of all the capital items throughout the different funds. I did not update the RDC in that for some reason, and I emailed that all to y'all earlier today with the corrected capital in there and handed that out at the RDC meeting with the updated capital for this year. So this budget was built, the proposed budget was built with the voter approval rate, which for the first time in many, many, many years is higher than your current rate. So the voter approval, this rate is 21.223 cents. Your current tax rate is 19.5 cents. The reason it went up, a lot of it is your growth rate was much smaller than it has been in previous years. It was only 5% higher than the current year. What am I looking for? The word. Net taxable value only went up 5%. Of that amount, approximately 320 million was new construction. So that's kind of why you were able, the tax rate went up because that 320 million brings new demands for services. So the state allows you to raise your tax rate to cover for those additional services, that additional demands that are brought upon the city. The average tax value on a homesteaded house now, average market value is 887,000. If you homestead that, which is your residence, the average homestead value comes to $516,451. So in the middle of this page, change to current tax rate. You have that $516,000 home at the different revenues. A no new revenue rate is 0.191962. Remember, the no new revenue rate is the tax rate that brings in the exact same amount of levy as the prior year, plus the new construction demands. So that rate calculates this year to 0.191962. That gives a tax levy on a house of about 991,000 on an average homesteaded home. At the current rate, that tax would be $1,007. So it gives you a 15% tax decrease compared to what the current rate would be. The voter approval rate, which is 3.5% more than the no new revenue rate, would give a tax on an average homestead of $1,096, an increase of $88 over the current rate of $1,007. So this budget was built with the voter approval rate. But this is just the proposed budget. It's nothing that's getting approved. This is for input from you as a council as a whole. So the property tax revenue in the general fund at the no new revenue rate would be 5.9 million. This year we had tax revenue of 6.4 million. So it would be a decrease in the budget of about 514,000. At the voter approval rate, which is currently what is in the binder you have now, is 7,065,000. So it was an increase of 629,000. If you went at the current rate, you'd have 6,093,000 in your budget compared to 6.4 last year, decrease of 342,000. If you do anything over the no new revenue rate, you do have to do all the ads that say it's a tax increase. You have to have your public hearing. If you stay at the no new revenue rate, your ad does not go out as a tax increase. So currently it is built with that voter approval rate. Y'all can change that by changing things within the budget. With that being built, these 3 sheets here that say corrected on one. So every year I try to tell you, okay, I think you're going to begin the year with a fund balance of 17,250,000. That's where I think we're going to end up the year, more or less. So our operating revenue we'd be bringing in at the voter approval rate is 16.3 million. There's other revenues besides just property tax, obviously. One area that our revenue is projected to go down in is our building permits of about, got them budgeted to go down about 250,000. This year we've only brought in 655,000 in building permits. Last year we brought in a little more than $1 million. The last 2 years. Last year we brought in $1 million. 2 years ago we brought in 1.5 million. So that number is definitely dropping, and that drops your general fund. So this is built with a revenue of 16.7 million. All of your expenses total 25.1 million. So it's a deficit budget of 8.8 million. But you're starting the year with 17 million. It still leaves you with 8,431,000, which is the second highlighted number down on the sheet. Says budgeted total fund balance. So down lower where you have your third highlighted number. So we have a policy of having a 6-month reserve on hand. A lot of cities only have 90 days. That's kind of the recommended by GFOA. Which is Government Finance Officers Association, sorry. That's the kind of the standard who puts out a lot of best practices. But we, being a coastal community, have stated we want a 6-month reserve. That has helped us with our bond rating because coastal communities typically cannot have that high of bond ratings just because by the nature of their community that things could happen. But the bond rating agencies look favorably upon us because we do want 6 months versus 90 days, and that has helped us in our bond rating. The daily requirement is $43,573. A 6-month reserve then requires 7.9 million. When I got the math corrected on this sheet, that's why it says corrected. We have 458,000 beyond the 6-month reserve requirement with the proposed budget as it is in your binder today, which is 193 days of reserve. The next two sheets give you different scenarios if you were to go to the no new revenue rate and make no changes to this budget. So it would be a no tax increase to the taxpayer. You, in the year with the $9.9 million deficit budget, your budgeted balance is only $7,287,000 estimated at the end of the year. Your 6-month requirement of the 7.9 million gets you 685,000 below the 6-month reserve requirement. Excuse me, there are some things that could be done to change requirements in the budget to keep you at that rate. The next sheet is the current tax rate. If you were to keep your tax rate exactly at the 0.195, it doesn't help you too much. You're looking at a $160,000 difference between that and the no new revenue rate. If you're going to do a tax increase, I would not recommend just staying at the 0.195. Might as well, 160,000 might as well go down to the no new revenue rate and not have to do an advertising it because it's only $160,000 to your budget. That's not too much. So with that being said, then we can go through kind of the things that are in the budget. If that's where you think we should go next.
Is everybody clear on that? Okay, because I know the math is a little tricky. But to Darla's point, this is the first time in a while that the proposed tax rate is going to increase, even though we've had additional value based on what we have budgeted. So we've had the luxury of being able to add some things to the budget and still lower the actual tax rate over the last several years, including last year, which was pretty substantial. But we all know things are changed economically and probably will continue to be that way for a little bit. So if we do all the things that we have asked for, remember, this is where we pick and choose. This is where we start, really looking at the numbers. If we do all the things that have been asked for, then we're looking at increasing the tax rate possibly.
And it did happen where that rate went up the year after Harvey, because there was quite a big drop in net appraised, net taxable value.
Right.
That's the only year I can really remember it happening. Probably.
Like 8 or 9.
Right, probably since I've been here, which I came here in 08. 09 was my first tax year.
When we were getting our favorable bond ratings for some of the projects that we had to do, how much did we have in reserves? A lot more than 6 months. If you said they want you at 6 months, did we have more, and did that having more months in reserve help us in our bond ratings?
Not really.
We always use that excess to do capital projects. So we were always, I think in every budget year, we always get it down to just over the 6 months. We've never left it really flush.
And it hasn't adversely. So if we stay there, we'll be able to bond stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. They've liked that policy that we have continued to adhere to it. And it is a policy decision. It's not a requirement that you stay above that 6 months, but we have set it as our policy goal, and it's a good goal.
So last year, the building permits were how much? Over $1 million?
Last year, they were 1,072,000.
And it
And when I
generated-
talk last year, I'm talking the budget
budgeting.
year of 23-24.
And it
22-23. I'm sorry, we're in 23-24. It was 1,072,000.
And it generated 300 and something $1 million in new building, new tax properties?
No, you can't necessarily say that. You gotta kind of look at maybe 2 years
Okay,
back because of
okay.
how long it takes to build. Right. In the
So-
year before that, we were 1.5 million in building
So
permits.
maybe some of that 1.5 million got us partially some of that 350 million in new taxable
Right.
properties.
As is the 1 million did too. It just depends on what time of year those were pulled, how quick the build occurred, you know.
So that 1.5 and 1 point something. What did we do this past year in building permits or your budgeting building permits?
We're at
600.
655 right now through the end of July.
So it's basically come down in half, so that $350 million in new value at some point possibly may trickle down and we might not have as new properties taxable next year. On the
think-
trend, unless we go into a building boom.
I-
You
I-
follow what I'm
Mhm.
saying is, if we're using that as an indicator. Next year, we might be. In the same,
The margin could be skinnier next year, and we could be in the
Yes.
same place next year
Right.
conceivably to where the the rates are, you would be having to look at another tax rate increase to maintain a budget. But it just, I mean, again, this is not just to maintain a budget. This is to build the budget, which is what we have put on the wish list. So that's why we're in here. We need to decide, are all these things that are on the list, things that we want to keep in, or do we need to trim some? And it's not a huge amount. I mean, but we just need to look at that while we're going
No,
through.
it's not a huge amount because
It's not a huge amount.
we are sitting 458,000 beyond the 6-month reserve requirement with the voter approval rate.
Right.
So really, when you go down to the no new revenue rate, it's $686,000 that you need to cut. We have some very large capital projects in there. And so I don't know if you want to go through the letter or if you'd rather me go through the departments or.
I think the letter's good unless everyone wants to just start with the departments, but it's a summary. Well, that's up to you guys. I don't know how much y'all want to go through, but
Right, my first paragraph of the letter kind of talks about what I just talked about.
Right.
The tax rate and where it brings your fund balances. If you were doing the voter approval rate is what is written in the letter because that is how the budget is constructed as of right now. There were some additional positions added to the budget, a maintenance person and additional custodian. But those two positions are spread out between the general fund, the harbor fund, and the facility fund. Our demand on our custodial staff is beginning to grow. We think in this next budget year, we will have the police department completed. It's going to be a whole lot bigger than the current little shack that they're in. And the fire and EMS station will be bigger than the mobile home that the EMS is currently in and the very small office space that the fire department is currently in.
and the harbor master's office and.
And the
facility is
harbor master office
huge
is
part of that,
coming
right.
that it is already completed and it's bringing demands onto that staff. So those two were added. If you do remember, the police talked about adding 2 positions to the budget. We did not add those to the budget this year simply because they have not become fully staffed. They're 3 officers down right now, I believe. Correct?
As of today, yes, ma'am.
Yes, as of today, we are budgeted for 24 positions. We have 21 on staff now. So to take them all the way up to 26 when we only have 21 that we have on staff, we just did not do that I didn't want to inflate numbers on paper that aren't happening.
Mhm.
If-
I think, and we all talked with Chief too. It's just, I mean, his focus next year is going to be moving into the building, right? That's going to be his big task. It's going to take a big effort with the IT lift and everything. And we just said, you know what, let's
It's gonna be
pull
a big
those 2.
task.
Let's pull those 2 positions right now and he can concentrate on that at a later date.
So then it gets into the large capital projects that we have in the I'm gonna go to the back to my capital. But in the city secretary department, for some reason, that's where the cemetery has traditionally been. Don't know why it landed there years ago, but it was there before I got here and I haven't moved it out. But the cemetery is in the city secretary's budget and we have 100,000 in that budget right now for some improvements. As we discussed in the council goals workshop, there was some desire to improve the drive lanes. We kind of have an issue where we may, we talked about 2 cars can't pass each other. I still don't know if that would ever become a possibility. We may have to do kind of a bump out type of layout, kind of like what we're talking about doing on nature preserve trails of bump outs for people to pass. If necessary, you can get out of the way. But we have 100,000 in the budget for cemetery improvements. The police station has police department has a lot of, if you're looking at that summary page, that's where a lot of those capital improvements are coming to the tune of over $3 million. Wiring cameras and access points for the new building are estimated coming in at about 530,000. The IT support for the police department, aka Sparky and Peggy have also been working on this, but they have contacted some vendors. We've gotten some estimates and it's sitting in around 530,000 to get in that building. And it's not really optional. I mean, you could go with less cameras in a police station. You don't really want to do that. There's also another 50,000 in the court security fund for cameras in the council chambers and the court area, not council chambers, court chambers, sorry, and the municipal court area of the building. The new dispatch area has a position for 3 dispatchers. Right now, we usually have 2 on duty, but it would give us another setup for a 3rd console for a 3rd dispatcher when that 3rd dispatcher is needed. And the chief mentioned some requirements that would be coming down the pipe for recording. Am I correct in stating it that way?
Yes, there's gonna be some of the technology is gonna have to be upgraded just because what we're using now is antiquated. We're still on a regular POT system through Brightspeed. They can't support it in the new building. Our 911 recorder is not gonna be able to be supported because it's on analog, everything's going digital. So I mean, there's a lot of layers to that onion other than it's just, one specific thing. Everything kind of spider webs and touches each other. The 3rd dispatch position, there's going to be a requirement for telephonic CPR to be a requirement across the nation or across the state. That requires 2 people to be on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you can't stop a call to answer another call if you're on 911 walking somebody through doing CPR, giving them instructions. So you have to have somebody to be able to do that. That's where the 3rd position becomes pretty critical. If you have one that gets damaged or has some equipment failure, you have to be able to have somebody that can get to another station and keep it operational. So that's part of what's going on with some of the expansion on things that are going into that new building.
So consequently, our new dispatch area has 3 stations versus 2, which we've had in the past. Those are some of the big areas in your police, but the biggest is we have put in the budget right now 1.8 million for animal shelter build. With that being said, you would not need a whole 1.8 million in this year's budget for an animal shelter. We could dial that back and put in the money for the A&E. We're still looking at locations of where would be the best fit for that animal shelter, which I don't know if David wants to talk more to that at this point, but if you hired an architect in November,
Yeah, here's kind of the math.
timeline,
Yeah, advertised for architect in October, hire architect in November, December through June, probably 6 months of design. Bid it in June, award in July. They break ground in August. We're not even getting a bill for it until 25, 26. So you really don't need 1.8 in the budget. Really, you just need your design services and maybe some surveying. So you figure on 1.8, you just figure, you know, a 13% design service and then surveying.
you would need the August and September work. 'Cause
Yeah,
whatever
but
work
most
they do-
likely,
They don't bill you, but you do have to,
yeah, you could have some August, September work, but
Yeah.
I just,
but that's a,
I don't
that's
think
if
you're gonna
everything
get.
went perfect
25.
on a wording in July.
Yeah, that's 450K. So like I was talking about earlier, doubling the 280 number to 500,000. Just have that available to start
You mean the one, right, so
1.8.
changing the 1.8 down to,
half.
or
No,
450.
maybe 300. I mean, if it's 12%,
Yeah, it's gonna be 12%, then maybe
It's
50
220.
for
yeah, so.
First story.
civil survey. Yeah, that's the fastest it's gonna happen.
Right, so that number could be dialed down. We just put the whole thing in the proposed. You dial that down.
That gets
could-
you where you need to be.
That could get you where you need to be for the tax rate. If that was your desires.
Okay,
So, you know, I would say maybe it's 216 is 12%. You got another 50,000 for A&E. When they break ground and do some site work, you might be looking at another 75,000 that they would get done prior to September 30th. Because whatever work they do, your auditors require you to put it in that year. You're looking at 341,000, so 350 would be probably sufficient for this budget year.
Mhm.
And then next budget year, because you would be awarding a contract, is where the bulk of the construction would come. But that's your decision when you get to July and the bids are brought to you. If you decide to continue with construction. So that is one place you could really dial back. That is your police, capital comes to 3,009,385 right now. If you dropped it down, what, 1.4 million? Is what I say, down to 350. I'm sorry, it would be more than that. Plus 1,888. I don't do things in my head because it's dangerous. You drop down 1,450,000 in your budget. Just by that. In the fire department, you have a rescue truck that's already been ordered. Not going to be delivered before September 30th, we believe, so that is having to be rebudgeted for the tune of 427,000. Don't have a ton of other capital in there. They have a Jaws of Life for 40,000. Well, gas powered unit for 11,000, where their budget is just like the police department. We anticipate this fire EMS station being done next summer. And it's going to require the same thing, wiring cameras and access points for controlled access to the building. You're looking at about 225,000 for that. And it's pretty much needing to be done because it's not in the construction cost of the building. So their capital, because of that 225,000, is at 714. Could have put it in EMS, but I put it under fire instead of EMS. So EMS only has 3 stair chairs at a tune of 25,000 apiece. These would help. They're more automated that kind of go up the stairs versus our people physically carrying people up and down stairs, which is not good for shoulders, backs, etc. I think that's kind of self-explanatory. AEDs, 25,000. I believe these are AEDs kind of citywide, not just your AEDs.
Oh, yeah, it's not, we don't even use it. For big glitch, everything is just for other departments in the city.
Right, that 25,000 is for other departments that are needed. Drive cameras, 50,000, and a whole blood startup. I think Daniel mentioned during the
Mhm.
council goals workshop about carrying whole blood. The universal blood type on the ambulances. There would be a startup cost for that. For refrigeration and different things on the units, and that's estimated to be 50,000. That is their capital. Public Works, the Vector truck has already been approved by you. It is on order, but it will also not be here before September 30th. So it is rebudgeted at the tune of 645,000. There's a camera for 100,000 that when you have the pipeline, after you clean out your drainage, you put the camera down into the drainage
Or
system.
before you clean it. too.
Or before you clean it too, yeah, you kind of want to know what's in there before you clean it for 100,000. Been told that could be delayed a year, but if you're gonna be looking at it before you clean, you really kind of want to get started on this drainage when it comes in. So you would want that. We're going to trying to digitize our documents more. So the inspections has 30,000 to try to get some more of their, not get some more, get their plans started. I don't think we had theirs done any yet.
Just the ones that were in the back.
Yeah, but the ones that are in
the-
their building area now, this would probably not complete it, but it would get some done. Then your other big capital item is the expansion of City Hall for 4.2 million. The A&E is currently being done. I don't know when we're looking at trying to get that stuff out. but-
November, out to bid, November, December.
Yeah, November, December out to bid, so you're probably looking at a January or February award of those contracts. That will get those numbers down, more accurate. Those are estimates at this point. Planning department really didn't have much, golf cart. If we don't purchase a golf cart, we're talking about maybe doing a truck instead. It may make more sense to actually do another lease of a truck versus a slow golf cart for their purposes. They really don't do much beach code enforcement anymore since the police department now has a parking enforcement officer. So a truck may make more sense. Under IT, we just have some monies to start with the building expansion. We're talking about a remodel of the council chambers, and there would probably be a lot of technology needs for that. Really not going to be needed till the 25-26 budget, but we needed to start some planning and maybe some consulting and deciding what we're going to do with the council goals. So that just has a little 10,000, and that's pretty much your $9.2 million worth of capital in the general fund. So I don't know if you want to, so earlier when we had the RDC meeting, we went over their capital requirements or their capital request, which were to the tune of $5 million. You can look in the RDC tab. What I did not put in my letter, but I did make a new letter for RDC, is that there were a few items that were requested for the RDC budget that we did not budget for. And as we discussed during the Council Goals workshop, the high school field being converted to AstroTurf was estimated to be 1.8 million. And then the school also asked for standalone locker room building to be added near the playing field for approximately $35,000. Neither one of these projects are under the park master plan. So they're not eligible for park dedication fees, nor are either one of these projects eligible for hotel motel funds. Just by definition, I don't think they meet what we could do for hotel motel funds. So that means if you wanted to do these projects, they would have to come from regular RDC funds, which is about 1.3 million a year for the entire quarter, half-cent sales tax that RDC receives to operate the pool and the other park systems. So that kind of leaves you, if you wanted to do these projects, general fund dollars to do turf and a locker room. The RDC board did not put these in when they had their meeting at 4 o'clock. The consensus on the locker room is that when we build the rec center, that you would maybe give the coach a key and access to those for locker rooms for them to use within the rec center. And then the turf, they didn't really have any moving forward on that because the RDC doesn't have the funds for that. If it was gonna come down to something that needed to be done, I think it would be general fund dollars, and that is not dialed into the general fund budget.
The 5 million from the RDC, that comes out of,
So the RDC, if you wanted to flip over.
you
to
have to use the 1 point. Do we gotta add some money to that 1.2 million to do what the RDC wants to do?
So the RDC budget begins on page 124. You have a tab for RDC. Page 126 talks about your revenues. The only source of revenue that the RDC budget has is user fees. And I'm talking user fees mainly for the pool. Our majority of our parks and rec programs, their user fees go into the general fund. But your pool user fees go into your RDC, as do a half-cent sales tax. A half-cent sales tax next year is estimated to be 1.3 million. So to do all the capital projects that the RDC has, we're doing a transfer from Hotel Motel Special to the tune of 4.6 million to complete the request of capital in the RDC budget.
But those are items that all meet the hot tax.
They meet the hot tax, so. But disaster turf and locker room do not.
Do not. But the 4.6 that we're pulling from hot tax. We don't normally pull 4.6 million a year for stuff like this, do we?
Pulled for the harbor master projects. The last 2 years, our transfers have been we pulled 1.1 million 2 years ago for the harbor, 2 million last year, and 2.9 this year.
To who?
The harbor.
What about RDC?
To RDC, we have not pulled the last 2 years. I think we pulled for the splash pad, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I think we pulled some from park dedication fees too. We pulled some things from parks from park dedication fees, but to qualify for park dedication fee money, it has to be in the park master plan. And the turf and the locker rooms are not in the park master plan.
So that's 6 million over 3 years that we pull to do the harbor. That depletes it, and we have a declining hotel motel tax revenue
Yes,
trending.
if we want to talk about hotel motel tax.
Okay.
Next, if y'all want to talk about hotel motel
On-
special on page 58,
Figuring out getting revenue for
right?
$5 million.
So we have been building hotel motel special up for quite some time. Definitely since Harvey and COVID, we definitely saw an increase in hotel motel tax revenues, which I kind of give y'all that on your monthly report. We have started doing projects that are tapping into hotel motel funds. On page 58, kind of gives you a breakdown of the hotel motel funds. We started the year with 12,195,000. We're estimating to end the year at 11.2. We've got several things this year that drew that down. On page 61, right now, we're sitting at 571,000 in actual expenses. We have 1,836,000 that has been awarded for the wayfinding project. Already been awarded, not built. They're working on the signs. So that is carried forward to next year. Charlie's Pasture Parking and J.C. Bar Boulevard are two projects that have been awarded in the
Street bond.
23 street
Yeah,
bond.
yeah.
The 23 street bond project. Those have been awarded, and we said those funds are going to be pulled out of hotel motel special because they were eligible for hotel motel special. So those two streets are rebudgeted also. And we just bought the IGA property, and 75% has to be dedicated to parkland and state parkland. And so that will be closing before September 30th. And that's why you have a dip down to the 11.2 million. In the hotel motel special, the current budget year we're in now, we have 150. We have 300,000 that went to outside agencies. In this budget that is proposed, you have 547,000, an additional 247,000 more than you gave to those agencies this year. I think there was a handout given to you from the Hotel Motel Committee. But this year we have 11,000 going to the Harvest Moon Regatta, 11,000 going to Trinity Day School for their turkey trot. EMS conference, 20,000. None of those received funds last year. This year, the current year we're in now, the Arts Center and the Community Theater both received 75,000. This proposed budget has them both going up to 100,000. The Historical Association this year received 150,000. They are going up in this proposed budget to 305,000. Now, of course, just like anything else in this budget, y'all can make changes to that. The wayfinding signage contract is already signed, so that has to stay at what it is, as does the Charlie Pasture Parking and the J.C. Bar. Those were already approved. The revenue, yes, we did do an estimated drop on that because hotel motel has gone down this year compared to what it was in the prior year. I know that we just had EDSA do our streetscape, and the lighting's included in that
Yeah.
too. And the lighting plan, that is not in this budget because those are they're expensive. And if you look at your budgeted fund balance, you're estimated with these projects to end the year at 2.9 million, down from the 12 million you're starting this year. Assuming everything gets complete in the year. Because the RDC transfer has 4.6 alone. There's 3.7 million to transfer to the facility fund to do the civic center expansion, the breakout rooms, and expanding out the back area that's currently under design. Nature Preserve has some capital and operational expenses, so it has a proposed transfer of 1.2 million. And then operations in the hotel motel fund of 3.4, 547,000 of that being funding of outside agencies. We have one employee in the hotel motel special now and our STR specialist. And, our fireworks is now under there. Our Christmas festival, we're still growing that. We budgeted at the same level of this year of 80,000. So that should be able to buy us some more lights and continue the festival that we have down in Roberts Point Park. And of course, insurance requirements have gone up due to our hotel motel facilities now being completed and our piers and different things that are the chamber, different things that are hotel motel eligible. So that kind of goes over the hotel motel special fund. The streetscape and the lighting, there are no funds in here to do that. I don't know if you want to talk about.
Yeah, one, so there is legislation in the state that allows a community to, if you can get in on the ledge, listed to go after a hot tax increase of, I think we're looking at 2%. So it'd be an additional hot increase of 2% to pay for like boulevard landscaping. So we're meeting with the chamber and Scott Joslov of the Texas Hotel Motel Lodging Association on Friday to discuss that possibility. A 2% increase would increase your hot about 3 million.
3 million.
And so it's something that, you know, if you would have that, that increase, you could go out and bond for, you know, probably all of the streetscape. And we think probably also the Charlie's Pasture Park project too, without having to trim them down. And then that would sunset upon payment of the bond.
But there's nothing in there at all, right? For the proposed
Nothing.
budget?
There's nothing
Nothing.
in there right now at all for them. There are other communities who have done hotel projects like this, other tourist communities. So I think, you know, we'd have to get somebody to carry it in both. Probably both houses.
Yeah, I think you're not going to get anyone opposing it if the chamber and Texas
hotel
Hotel Lodging is, if they're behind it, I don't think it's that hard of a lift. But it's a timing issue, you know, we have money in for a lobbyist, so the ledge is coming up. So if you know, you would look at September for the law to go into effect. September of 25. It would go into effect, well, at least the law would go into effect. I'm not sure what the task is afterwards on the city's part to. I think that's all you do is.
That's all
get
you
in the ledge,
do.
you're
Once you
good.
get in the ledge and they give a start date of when.
Then we
that
would-
Can start.
Then we would have to figure out what we wanted to build and go after a bond, secure the bond, put it out to bid. So you're looking at,
And it would be a revenue bond.
yeah, so you're looking at
Revenue bond.
26 as a construction date. All of 25 would be ledge and securing your bonds in the fall.
Should you, in order to secure the bond, so you know even the estimated costs, and because I know we've put some of it
Yeah.
through the pencil, but I mean, is there any money that you could, or if you had available to put in this year's budget to better define that as a council, if we said, okay, we want to do this, these are the projects, you know, I mean, obviously we know pie in the
don't know,
sky, but
yeah.
I mean,
I think the EDSA stuff's pretty accurate.
Mhm. But I think until you had the legislation of the additional 2%, if you did a revenue bond, it would have to go against your current 7%.
sure.
Because that's the only revenue that you have that.
Yeah, no,
It's
I'm
allowed.
not talking about doing the bond yet. I'm just saying, should there be any money in there at all to keep the project rolling forward? Because otherwise you're doing nothing for a couple of years.
ETA is paid for.
Yeah, EDSA's paid for, so I mean, it's sitting, you know, we would concentrate on the lobbyist. Getting us into law. You know, the governor signs it at the end of May. And it goes into effect September of 25. So would you need to do something from, you know, June, July, August, September? you might want to, redo your numbers. Your numbers are gonna be
Right.
a year. Your numbers are gonna be a year old. I mean, our numbers are pretty fresh. I mean, our numbers are from June of this year, so your numbers are only a year old next summer. I mean, I think maybe you can put 100 in there in case we need to. I don't think we would need to do anything with Mark McCliney at that point,
No,
right?
There's no costs with him until you issue bond.
Yeah,
And those come in the bond.
Mhm.
Was that something we were trying to do without the increase, or at least get one of the projects getting valued engineered and getting one started without looking for the additional hot tax?
I mean, again, it's a wish list item, but just don't have the money to do it. But, that's up to the council discretion. I mean, more than anything, I'd like to see something happen with the Charlie's Pasture bulkhead project. And not have to wait a couple of years to get that going. I mean, I think the streetscapes and the improvements, the lighting, the walkability, the accessibility, all these things are in the comp plan, right? All that's in the comp plan for both the park and the streets. And so, I just like to try to keep things in the comp plan moving forward. So, but I mean, they're big ticket items
Yeah.
and they cost a lot of money. So we have to find a way to pay for them. Because we don't have it in the general fund.
No.
Or in the hotel motel tax budget either, right? 'Cause
No,
we have a lot of, we
hotel
have a
is
lot of
going
big
from
projects.
12 million to 3 million
Yep. We got,
in less than 2 years.
Yep. we got big stuff happening, so. Well, I mean, and really from the goals workshop, I mean, and I know we have still a lot to go on, but I mean, that project, those two projects and 361 lighting, those are the only things that aren't built in here that were kind of even mentioned or discussed.
When we went through, Dave and I both went through the list and we wrote down.
yeah, animal shelter, cemetery, the light at Avenue G and Station Street, that's in there, 400K. Lobbyist is in, streetscape.
But that's not in,
Yes, we were saying, maybe go after a special hot tax,
Well,
lobbyist,
but
but
that's, yeah,
it's not.
right.
That's
in
not-
the-
Yeah.
That's not in the number, yeah.
Charlie's Pasture bulkhead improvements,
Same thing,
beach toters is in,
100,000 for that and restroom upgrade.
broadband solutions, we're kind of on the side working.
Still
that
working
one.
on that, yeah.
Then lighting on 361. Urgent care, we decided no funds needed. Hotel conference, no funds needed. And 67 acres, no funds needed. We weren't moving on any of those. Lowering speed limits on around town. And then, so that's it.
Okay. Well, we can keep going down the list.
Do you think the bulkhead should be sooner than later, the bulkhead part?
I mean,
It's just gonna turn into mud, right? Once it's, that's, we're
it's
gonna.
already mud.
Got a bunch of rocks there. Rockscape.
But I mean, if our desire is to make it into, a really fabulous kind of,
Yeah, but if that's salt water
Bayside
coming
Park.
over, you got to have something that's gonna handle all the salt water coming over that wall. Which is not gonna be any real pretty landscaping because that salt water will kill everything.
Well, you gotta design it around your hot spots.
Yeah,
yeah, and I think
well, I get that.
their design, I mean, they're Florida, so they didn't pick a bunch of plants that were in the hill country or something like that. But I mean, again, that would change later. I think the whole concept was to have another area that would be, a
No, I
space that
get
can
it.
be.
It would be
yeah.
nice. It's just that when I have water come over the bulkhead, it kills my plants and they're native plants.
Well, it wasn't just plants.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that were proposed down there, including, just really making it a nice
Yeah,
area.
there's a way to, you got a pretty wide boulevard that's right behind the bulkhead. And you put in curbs, you put in drains, and
Right.
you can funnel that water that does come over. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to scour the whole park.
No.
So we just had to find ways to pay for that. But in the meantime,
We'll have a good idea Friday where
yeah.
where we're
that
sitting
is.
with, when we meet with Scott. I mean, if he gives us a thumbs up, then could be a home run.
Yeah, that'd be a good deal.
We definitely could, because 3 million a year can grow pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Um. So that's kind of covered the general fund. I covered hotel motel special on that already. So you want me to just continue to go through the funds in the capital of them? Let me look at my letter. In my letter, I didn't get into the court technology and court security funds that charge a portion of court fine on each ticket. We have dialed into that additional needs for the wiring of the new building for the court section and cameras for the court, as I mentioned earlier. Then the nature preserve fund has several things that are also looking for hotel motel and its capital outlay needs birding center parking trails of 310,000, bollards and cabling for the birding center 35,000, Paradise Palm parking improvements of 80,000, and still working on last year's council goals of the cameras on property. We're starting to dial up that program now that we have the harbor master coming on board. Sparky and Peggy have been working on getting a system that's cloud-based that can be monitored. And so we're leaving some monies in various funds for continued cameras on property of different areas. And then we have grant funds that are going in for the boating access grant, the Kepler Lost Land Grant, and the Restore Grant of Trails, and has already been started and continuing of that project. So those are nature preserve needs, and nature preserve has no revenue source, so it does rely on hotel motel special for its operations and capital needs, because there's no way for the nature preserve to make money. We've already gone over the hotel motel special fund. The facility fund has a pretty hefty fund balance already. That's why your civic center expansion is estimated at 5.3 million, but we're only transferring for
3.7.
3.7 from 3.7 from the hotel motel, because it already has a fund balance and is not needing to pull that whole 5 million from motel special, thank goodness. Went ahead and put 100,000 in there for the AC unit. We replaced the one on the stage, by the stage last year. Put 100,000 in there for the one that's closer to the doors, because it took over a year for that to come in, and just anticipating that it may be getting to its end of life, and we don't want to have happen what we had happen and go down to one, because it puts a strain on the one system you have. And that one does already have some pretty significant leaks that we know of. So it may be time to go ahead and bid it. Those things are very expensive. Community center remodel. The estimate I was given for that is 720,000. Lawrence could tell you what is in it. I really can't remember what else.
Everything. Yeah, it's that building is like 100-year-old building.
Brought to our attention was like areas of rot. And instead of just addressing the symptoms, really looking into it, I think there was a roof replacement. Well, not replacement, but repair after the storm. And talking with contractors, they explained to me like, you don't do roof repairs, just a tire, so you do a roof replacement. So that's led into some water infiltration. The architect gave me a list here of a lot of different things to be done. I have that, but it's pretty much almost everything.
And I was looking at that, I mean, I think, if we're gonna do that, and I don't disagree that it's necessary, but, I know there's funds in here also for the bathrooms for the, park that we're building there, because we
Right.
talked about that
Yeah.
being a priority of having some restrooms that were outdoor facility. You didn't have to go into the community center. So I'm hoping that there's some way we can have some cost savings. If we're gonna remodel the community center that extensively, then we can do some additional bathrooms on that building that you would have outside access to.
Yes.
That wouldn't cost you this astronomical amount for the estimate we got to build the freestanding bathrooms. That makes sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's our desire also.
Okay.
But we have 400,000 in the RDC currently
I saw that
estimating
for that.
for the restrooms for the community square.
You'd probably cut that in
Golf
half
club
if you
on
get them in.
If you just did an extension
Yeah.
into the existing
Oh,
building or
I'm
something.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we originally talked
Right
about.
down in the town square. Yes, and we're just able to add on to the building, but that community center remodel is in at 720,000 with another 400,000 under RDC for the restrooms. That's pretty much what is in the facility fund besides operations of the civic center and the community center. Airport has in 476,000 for paving of the taxiway. We do not have those funds available without researching for a grant. So there is a grant revenue line item in there, paving of the taxiway in there for the same amount. But we are gonna have to pursue some grant to do that. If not, the place to do that would probably be general fund, or you might be able to up into no, possibly have too much help it.
Well, there's not money in the airport fund, that's for sure.
There's not, because and the reason there's not is because we have already given TxDOT our grant aviation match for that project is beginning to get underway.
But you could go for another Texas Aviation grant for that.
Yeah.
Right,
Yes, ma'am.
and you could go back
Mhm.
out. Okay.
They have the ramp grants and they have a lot of 90-10 money out there. And that's why we went ahead and put it in the
Mhm.
budget so that we could just start pursuing the grants. But we do not have that money in hand as of yet.
Well,
And the beach fund has quite a bit of capital in there. 1.4 million for a lifeguard building. We have had that in the last few years. We haven't been able to move forward in that until we moved forward with the fire EMS staging on that block, because the plan for the lifeguard building is to be in between.
No, it's on the very end.
It's on the
Avenue
very
C.
end now.
Yeah, but we
They're on
need, we
Ninth
need to get
Street.
the site a little developed before the lifeguard building gets in the way.
But it is in the budget at approximately 1.4 million. The trash toter replacements that were a council goal is in at 100,000 for the beach. We have a golf cart in there for the code enforcement officer, the parking officer, and then the beach access road B. They had two estimates. One was an estimate for asphalt, the other was for concrete. This is the more expensive concrete
Concrete,
option of
yeah.
2.4 million. That's gonna be council if y'all wanted to go down in the 1.8, but it's not beach fund eligible for what we get as a refund back from the state. The rebate we get from the state, the 2% is strictly for clean and maintain and is not the beach access, but our beach parking permits, we sell quite a bit of those, and those, by researching state law, we believe that is beach access road eligible, so it is in there at the 2.4 million. Dump truck has already been ordered, but not going to be delivered before September 30th, so that is rebudgeted for around 138,000. They need to replace a loader, and they have quite a few vehicles on lease for a total of 158,000, and that is the beach. The harbor, your big capital item is to repave the boat ramp parking area for 300,000. In the construction fund, we have that CDBG drainage grant. Excuse me, phase 1 is already underway. And this is our match requirement on that. The 23 bond project has already been bidded. It's underway. That's the remaining portion of that. The rec center, we did the tax anticipation note for 14 million. So we have the rec center in now at 14 million. I anticipate that that is going to come in higher than the 14 million. Don't know, I haven't seen the plans, but. And then the fire EMS tax anticipation note. Remember, we issued a $9 million tax anticipation note for shortfalls for the public safety building, which it has not been needed there. But for the fire EMS and the public works building, and we're anticipating it all going to the fire EMS of $9 million. There are additional fees under the park dedication fund. We've been building that up and haven't really used any park dedication fees. I don't think since we built the splash pad, and we've used it for some playground equipment. But the rec center is in the park master plan, so park dedication fees are eligible for rec center. So that gives you 780,000 there for rec center shortfall if needed. The street maintenance fund is where we have placed the Avenue G and station light, estimated at 400,000, and an asphalt roller that will help them with patching street. And the 10 by 10 concrete box is a storage facility for cold mix, I guess is what you call it, right?
Yeah.
Gas fund. Gas fund has a lot of capital. 984,000 is the new estimate that James, our gas superintendent, has for the system tie-ins. As I mentioned, we have new homes that have come on to the system post Hurricane Harvey. Right now, when
Which
those
FEMA won't cover.
systems come on, they've been tied into our old current system. We're going to have to move them to the new system, and FEMA will not cover to do that because they were not in the system when Hurricane Harvey hit. They weren't in our count. They will only tie into the new system the number of units that were in the system at the time of Hurricane Harvey. That is 984,000. It's not an option. It's going to have to happen. The gas office of 1.6 million plus A&E plus parking is in the budget. That really is going to need to happen because they cannot stay in the current building that they are in right now. It is going to go away for parking for the police building. It's in that footprint that you're on is taken in by the new police building. And the rest of the capital is really not much. Itron, it's setting up their automatic meter reading systems and A&E for that building. So in my letter, I state, we talked about some things in the gas department that are not budgeted right now, redundancy of the line on the other side of the highway.
Yeah, so the redundancy would be putting another high pressured main across from Fish Pass on the east side, the beach side of the highway, and run it all the way down basically to Pamia, and then cross over and tie back into Area 51. And so it would give you that redundancy. That's not in here. Lawrence and his team were successful in getting Corpus hooked up this summer during the, what outage?
For the
was that?
hurricane.
Hurricane. So the backup's there, but what's lacking is the redundancy, and we're just gonna have to push it a year or so until.
I think it would end
Yeah.
up having to be a revenue bond.
Yeah, you'd have to. do
Gas
it.
revenue bond. It's a very high ticket item. And it would be years for us to build up enough reserves to be able to get that done. So I think it would need to be done with a revenue bond. We are still currently under our fee.
I wonder if
what
you could,
call it,
I
our
wonder if
rate.
you were, if we're still under contract with Equix. Do it through a change order, because then you'd be getting.
A
like
break on your
old-
mobilization.
Yeah, and you'd be getting pricing from 2023.
If they give you the 2023 price, you'd say.
Well, if it's a change order, they have to.
Are we still under rate review? So,
Yes, we're still
Right.
under rate review. That's still currently going on. We're
Right.
pulling the data for them. And one thing they're asking in this rate review is future projects. So
Mhm.
we will put this in for the
Mhm.
rate review because that's something that they would look at. That's one of the questions they're asking is what future projects are there? That 984,000 for
Right.
the system tie-ins that's gonna go in there. Also, we will let them know, these are other things that the system really needs, which one thing would be the redundancy.
how
And-
long, I mean, would that be completed or we can?
I
make
don't
some-
know when it might be completed.
this
They've been waiting on
September,
some
right?
data from us and
Yeah, and we're hoping. Yeah, a lot of these questions, the finance department's gonna have to answer,
Mhm.
there's a little bit from the gas department, but we think if we can hustle on it over the winter, right? Hopefully things slow down, we work on that kind of stuff, especially your office. Maybe we do the rate increase this spring, so.
But the study's finished in a month or two, right?
no, they're still waiting on, we're still pulling data together for
Oh.
them. And then I don't know
That's
what
a
they're gonna
huge
have.
data.
It's a huge
There wasn't a lot.
data left. And
Maybe spring.
we're working on it now.
Okay, because I think that'll be a good source.
It
for us to
will.
come up
And
with
that's
some
one
of these
thing they want to
shortfalls.
know is what
What projects are in
what
place?
projects are in the future. And because then they will make recommendations of, you could put this much in your rate, but you're gonna have to do this much, would need to be a revenue bond,
Mhm.
which eventually goes in your rate, but it goes in your rate at a slower pace. So versus making everybody's rate go. ooh. The RDC fund. Did we talk about all that? The sanitation fund, we mentioned during the Council Goals workshop about bringing the commercial, accounts in-house billing versus just the residential. And I did dial into the budget to bring the commercial accounts, commercial dumpsters in-house billing with a 5% upcharge, which helps bring the sanitation fund more self-sufficient.
Colleen, the slide, whatever happened on the slide? Do we not need a new slide? Is that?
Eventually, we do need a new slide, but I think, the timing with the rec center construction is best to repair the one we currently have.
Okay, so you're gonna be able to
Yeah,
repair
we need
it
to
to get
repair
it,
for what, 30?
33 is.
to
what we
get
put
it back in
in.
action
Yeah.
before, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
And that's a repair by Craftsman, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's by the manufacturer
And maybe sooner
and
than
not a
later.
third party. How quick can they do it?
It's ready for you to sign. I got the-
Okay, good.
Good, good.
Darla wants
Oh, well, if that's what we're doing, then it would be a budget amendment in this year's budget.
Well,
I have no idea
we'll see
if
if they
ready.
can pull the trigger that quick. They'd have to show up in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
already August 12th. You only
Yeah,
have
we'll see. We'll
6, 7
follow.
weeks.
Oh, no, but we shouldn't wait. It'll be hot for
No,
a
we're not
long
waiting.
time. Those little kids want to slide down the slide.
I would slide down.
I mean, you heard the kids are crying when they go by. They're like, "Well, the slide's broken forever. Do you want me to sign it? Just give it to me. I'll sign it."
We'll sign it, but it depends on when they do it, if it's in this budget or next budget.
I mean, Mark's grandkids are dying to
When
get
they
down the
actually-
slide.
Anything to get them away from the house.
Keep them busy longer.
Yeah. Okay. I just noticed it wasn't in there and we talked about you thinking it was gonna need to be a big replacement item and I didn't see it, so I was just
Well,
curious.
they didn't give me a repair number, so
Oh.
they really wanted us to go. with the
Oh,
new-
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, where, did you tell them we're already spending a lot of money over at the big park? They could probably, they should fix it for free.
They should fix it for free.
It's like I will call. You tell me, I'll call somebody.
We'll yell at them at TML.
I'll call before then. Okay, all right. What else?
So that was going over capital, you know, there are other things in the budget, the pay scale and police officer pay structure. We're both done with the CPI adjustment, to the tune of the 8.17. The 4 employees not on the pay scale, which are the city manager, 2 assistants and the police chief would fall under that same, increase. We adjusted a few positions on the pay scale, moving them from steps that they were, which is the pool manager and the grounds foreman. We changed their scale up to a higher reclassification by looking at, just thought they were underclassified and needed to be moved. A reclassification of 1 gas utility worker up to a journeyman position and increasing the pay grade for the gas records compliance officer also. Technology needs, I spoke about that, pretty much covered everything in the general fund, the nature preserve, the hotel motel. Don't think I really missed anything. So bottom line, the way the budget is in your binder, it is at the voter approval rate. But which gives you 458,000 beyond the 6-month requirement. But if you drop down and don't budget the whole 1.8 million of the animal shelter and just make that one change, you could go down to the no new revenue rate and easily meet your 6-month requirement.
So when you did the animal shelter, was the 280 still in there and then you were gonna go what, 350?
280's in this year's budget.
280's in this year's budget
This
for
year,
y'all to
okay.
do this
So
stuff
that was,
this year.
okay,
So next year, the only thing that was in the budget was the 1.8 million,
right.
plus the daily animal control operations is at 40,000, and which is your supplies and vets, and your AC training was at 5,000. So no, there's not 280 in next year's budget. But if you want some money for some improvements to the current shelter plus the 350, you still would have room. If y'all want something in there for that.
We could use the 280 now between
Use
now
the
and
280
October.
now between now and September 30th, which is
No.
what,
Well,
Right, they are working on shade
Depends
structure.
on what you want to do. I mean,
Right,
yeah, you
right.
got shade structures coming, but
Right.
you're building a $1.8 million facility. I don't see the point in throwing a bunch of money into that facility.
Well, the shade structures we're paying for. so-
Yeah.
shade structures are being built now.
Yeah, we're paying for.
But I mean, I don't
all
see the
those.
point in
Which
doing architectural.
we had
or-
money
No,
for
no,
it.
no, I was just, the only thing I was thinking is maybe get one of those like offices to put next to it to move them out, you know, like over here that the court's in, to put next to it, and then we could use that room for something else, like a quarantine room or something, so we don't have everybody getting sick at one time.
Those mobile modulars, because I've got to change the that is one change, I'm sorry. The RDC budget did
Oh,
not.
that's right.
Yes, the RDC budget did not have funds in there for a building rental, so that does have to be added to the RDC budget, but it's only going to be about $10,000. That's the only, that and changing the tax rate are the only things I'm kind of hearing from y'all. Don't know if I really have consensus on that, but we'll get to that. Mobile modular, we are paying those buildings are only 572.
Only if there's enough electricity to run it.
Yeah.
And you
Because
have
you
to
can't put
have, what
anything
they
in-
have is they have bladders that our Public Works pumps out for their restroom facility.
Yeah, you can't add any more electric on that building. It flips already.
No, you'd have to bring in a new service most likely.
But I think that kind of goes over the budget, so now. Whoever wants to discuss anything, we will have, our regular meeting is August 22nd. Any changes y'all direct me to make, I will make, bring to you at that meeting. At that meeting is when we would need to take a vote, a record vote for advertising and setting public hearings for the tax rate. If you stay at the no new revenue rate, you do not have to have a public hearing. You go 1/1000th of a penny over, which if you stayed at your current tax rate, it is over, you are required to have a public hearing.
Um. I just would like to see us not increase the tax rate if possible, which would require us cutting something out of the proposed budget to be able to stay at the 6-month reserve requirement. And I don't know where that is. I don't know that that's, changing what we would do with the animal shelter budget or doing some other changes. I mean, there's a lot of things in here, but that was my first inclination. And I don't know if everyone else looked at that long and hard enough, but it just, we haven't had to do that in a long time, and I really would not like to do that to the taxpayer. I mean, they're getting the increases as it is because of the way values are.
Yeah.
And if we can keep the actual rate down, I'd like to do that. I mean, we definitely have to meet budget, and I know when you have income coming in to stay at the voter approval rate would still generate, a great amount of money, and we could do a lot of things, and we need to do a lot of things, right? I mean, we're cutting things that we want to do that aren't even in the proposed budget, right? But if there are areas that we can cut to be able to at least stay at that no new revenue rate,
Doesn't the
I would like
1.4 million holding for the next year fix our reserve completely or no?
I'm sorry, the 1.4 million.
Pulling the 1.4 out of the police department.
The animal.
Oh, the animal shelter, taking the animal shelter down
Well,
from
because we're
1.8
not gonna
to,
build it.
yes, sir, it does.
Okay,
If you pull that down and go with your A&E amount. And
You're good.
You're good.
and maybe it's not that number. I mean, all we're short is,
Right, you don't have to
400,
pull that
yeah.
much out. You can,
or maybe you put some other money in some other places or wherever. I mean,
Right.
I'm not suggesting that we necessarily just eliminate that one thing. I'm just saying, in general, that's my feeling. I'd like to
right.
not.
What is the max to be pulled out to still keep us where we need to be? So you were talking 450, what would be the magic number we could sit at and still keep as much as we could in the animal shelter fund?
And 234,050 is what your revenues go down to. You need 685,000.
gotta find 685,914.
Right, so if you take 1,088,888 minus 685,914. You could still keep 1.14 in. Which is still gonna be more than you need in the current year.
So we could keep 1 million in the animal shelter fund and still be where we need to be.
You could.
Why
I
would
just-
you do that?
I don't know, it just, sometimes when you start taking money out, it never seems to get back in there for some reason. There's always something that absorbs it. I just think,
We would not spend it in the current year. So you're really just putting it on paper. Yeah. You know.
And that's all general fund money, right? I mean, there might be, I mean, obviously, we need to look at some of these other funds too and make sure that we're reserving enough or keeping enough or whatever. But yeah, for general fund, I mean, I think that we just need to look at that number. And I mean, if you know, I may be the only one, you know, if y'all feel differently and want to be at the voter approval rate, then we can keep it in there, but
Pulling that out leaves us with the no new revenue rate, correct?
and a fund balance of probably what?
I can. connect with
7 month
that with
reserve,
you
maybe,
just to-
might pick you up for a little more.
Just a hot minute. Let me get my number of what my revenue goes to, my budget revenue estimate for the no new revenue rate is 5921300. Let me pop it in my finance system real quick.
We could cut the salary
And-
increases.
And we said,
That'd be popular, wouldn't it? No raise for you, Dale. I'm teasing. Again, yeah, again. You're gonna continue to make 0 as a city council person. Sorry. Just when you were wanting to get a little extra.
Might have to start paying.
Yeah, now you have to pay to be a council person.
I think you
Just so
you
we
do
can
pay.
get tax rate down.
Believe me, it costs you being a county.
so what is the consensus for putting in, right, but for putting money in the animal shelter, and I'll tell you how much.
I think the goal was to hit the no new revenue rate.
Well, you can do that and still leave $1 million in, but you don't need that much.
I think at a minimum, we need to have the fund, because at the goals workshop, we talked about that being the next step, right? Identifying the location, working on the A&E and, you know, and so I think at a minimum, we need to have that in there, you know, so that we don't lose momentum, you know, moving forward. But if you honestly feel like we're not going to be able to even start the project, then
Yeah, it's gonna be August.
you know, and
That's at the quickest.
Why don't I put 400, which is
and if
A&E
there's a
plus.
way to do what Joellen suggested and get a mini mobile over there to have office space and, you know, because again, whatever we do,
gonna
wherever
take
we
a
do it,
couple
it's
years.
going to take a while. So
It is.
if there's a way to put that in there, even with the 280 that we have in the budget now, so where, you know, you can make those changes to, and I don't know what it would cost to, you know, move them over and clean out the existing space, but I mean, maybe that's something.
It's probably 100. I mean, just to get it takes a long time to set stuff up like
Sure.
that. I mean,
Right.
it's,
We
you
just
gotta
don't
bring
even
in,
know if the electricity.
you gotta
will
bring
let
in
us do it.
yeah, you're probably gonna have to bring in a power
Yeah.
pole
You
and
have to
run a
ramp
new
it.
line. You gotta build a ramp to it. You gotta make it ADA accessible because they don't do any of that, just like the ones we did across, you know,
Yeah.
it's a couple months of work
No, I
for
understand
Lawrence
that.
and,
It's the powers that
Um,
make thing, yeah.
yeah.
But if you put 350,000 in for A&E and then another 100,000 to do a site work like that, you're looking at 450. Close to your 5, or we could put 5.
Yeah, just put the 5 in there and that gives
Let me
a
put
little
5
breathing
in
room for
there.
this
Let me
building.
put 5 in there. I changed my revenue amount. Let me run the report.
So we're gonna do 350 for like 375 for the A&E.
And then 125.
And then 125 to get something set up over there, right?
Sounds good.
Is that right, you guys?
I mean,
Everybody
if
feel,
that helps improve the situation.
Yeah, because if it, I don't know if it'll last 2 more years with electric. It goes off all the time.
I think once you get under construction, that building's gonna go pretty quick. It's not that big.
I just don't,
Building.
I just don't wanna be short if we get into some of those hidden costs that always seem to.
Well, you're not gonna be short until 25, 26.
Right. That's when you're gonna have to budget, because you'll have your bids by then. So this brings me. Let me write down these numbers real quick, because I can't print. 15,234,050. 23,896. 085. 8,662,035. Pop these into my Excel.
See how much my taxes are.
No, see the minus, if you stay at the no new revenue rate, it's a minus, Dale.
Okay, they're gonna go down.
Well, if you're frozen and over 65 and have a homestead exemption, then you probably go down. Otherwise. I'm trying to. What's the school doing, Daniel? See? I'm not gonna be the bad, big bully that the school dropped and the city didn't.
County will go up.
They're going up.
Our hospital district, you know, for our coverage.
We don't.
Okay, that changes your sheets here to where you've got, go to the no new revenue rate. It changes your net after expenses to, instead of 9.9 million, 8,662,035 in the red.
Okay.
So that changes your budgeted total fund balance to 8,587,965, which is 614,000 past your 6-month reserve requirement.
What was it again, Darla? 8, the total budget fund balance?
Net after expenses is 8,662,035.
Okay.
Changes that line 25,196,085 in expenses changes to 23,898,085. And see, that's what happens, Chuck, when you type in that number instead of the formula. You lose your formula and then it's wrong when you turn it in. That's why I had to redo and did a correction.
I went into her office this morning and
At
said, Darla,
8:05.
you need to fix something before Chuck
Chuck-
tells you.
And then I got an email from
She was
Chuck an
like,
hour
"What?" I
later.
said, I think your math is off.
I said, I did. I
It's like-
typed in
it's
and
like,
took my formula
Yeah, he
out.
does all day long.
I'm
It's
gonna
budget.
fix that and send it out before Chuck calls me.
And then I got an email from Chuck.
Then
And I
Chuck
went, he
emails it
noticed it. You're right.
9:36.
So it's 614, that's gonna probably put you at 200, maybe 210 days over reserve, right? So maybe you might get close to 7 months.
Let me see, plus 8,587,965 divided by 43,573 is 197 days.
Oh, only 197.
So what adjustments did you make?
I took the animal shelter down. From 1.8 million down to 500,000
Okay,
in total,
right, total.
A&E.
Right,
and-
yeah. And the,
I didn't split it out yet. I just typed in
right,
one.
and bringing in
500,
a little mini
but mini
mod
modular
and doing some work to the building to switch it up.
shape, yep. Mhm.
Then that gets us our 6 months reserve.
Yes, sir. Gets you 197 days, 180 days is 6 months.
Okay.
Are y'all okay with that? How do y'all feel about that? Just rip it up.
Lot of numbers.
It is a lot of numbers, but it does work. Doing that. if that's
We
your
still,
desire.
as long as we stay within those numbers, right, there's, well, how long timing wise? If we don't have to post, can we change something? In case there's something we forgot or somebody comes up with some idea, or, I mean, I'm not saying another $3 million
Right,
plan.
you'd have to call another meeting. The plan is to have a vote on August
Thursday,
22nd
right,
on
okay.
your, what you're setting your, tax rate at.
Right, but I mean, if you were
Typically
able to.
for a public hearing, it's a 14-day notice.
Mhm.
So that means Monday. Here.
Public hearing, if you're going above it, right? We don't have to do a
Right.
public hearing.
Right, if we.
Right, but that's what she's saying. If you want to change, you would have to, you're still about the 22nd. Because, but I think for tax rate, is your public hearing requirement is not long for a tax rate? Is it still the 14 days? Yes. You pretty much have to do it the 22nd because we have to have the add to the jetty by the 26th to come out on the 29th, which is 14 days ahead of the 12th.
Right, so you could come in and juggle things, right? You
Yeah,
could do,
no, that's what I mean.
you know,
Yeah,
the apples can take away the oranges.
right,
but
right, right.
As long as you stay below your rate, you
Your
can
rate
do
would
that.
have to
You can
stay.
do that up
And-
till the
and-
bitter end.
We
Oh,
have-
you do that till the 12th.
Right, okay.
You
That's what
juggle
I'm
and you
s-
can change
right.
changes the budget till the 12th, but your tax rate vote,
Stay right.
you
Right.
really need to do Thursday.
Sure, and that's
22nd.
fine. I mean, if we,
Yes. No, you can change anything in the budget except for the tax rate after the 22nd.
that's what I was,
Yes.
okay. Just wanted to make sure that was still the case.
Anything moves around, you can say, no, I don't like it.
Or
cut
you
it."
could reduce, right?
Oh, yeah, you can cut. it.
Well, I'm
You
sure.
just can't.
Decide you want to add some $3 million project or something that would
Yeah.
affect the number again,
Correct.
right?
Right. But no, you
go
can definitely cut anything, you can move things. You just cannot change that tax rate
Right.
up once you take that record vote.
Okay, so everyone has at least 10 days to think about that.
Correct, because today is only Monday. I feel like it's a Thursday because we're
I know,
meeting.
I
It's
know.
only Monday.
Well, we're ahead of the
We
game.
have
Remember,
4 more days of work.
we wanted to give you a buffer.
Just one.
Buffer. Okay, so that takes care of that. I mean, do we need to talk about these other funds?
So what I did in the general fund is kept it at the no new revenue rate, and I put 500,000 in total for the animal shelter.
And you'll send us, we'll get that kind of recapped.
Yes, I
Okay.
can actually email those tomorrow,
Okay, that would be awesome.
and it will be in your packet also next Thursday.
Okay, so Daniel's gonna not break his back and everyone else will still get their stuff.
You're right. We can carry heavier people and thinner people up and down. Yes, they did it when they, and it was over.
Oh.
Get down here. It's with the
Okay,
board.
gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the general fund, municipal court, tech and security are your next tabs. There's really nothing in that except for things required in the building and ticket writers, which we've already are buying, so we're continuing those. Debt service, that is what it is. Those are your debt payments and they're already set when you issue the debt, so you cannot make any changes there. Nature Preserve Fund, your there's anything anyone wants to discuss in nature preserve?
I don't have any questions, y'all.
Okay. Hotel motel is where we take the revenue in and we're paying chamber 3.25% of actual collections. So what we're paying them is estimated to be the 4.656, but we pay them on actual collections. So that can fluctuate depending on what we actually collect. Hotel motel special is your next fund. And we've talked some about that. It's definitely dropping. Now, will all of these projects be completed 100% at the end of the year? No, the facility fund transfer of 3.7 million may not be made in this budget because we have not awarded the contract. We haven't gone to bid yet for expansion of this building. I don't know when that's, you said December?
I'm hoping November, December.
November, December is when we're hoping, so we should be breaking ground February, March.
Mhm.
It won't be completed by September, but it should be started. RDC, most of her items are underway. The community park, the Old Town Square Park is being constructed now. The playground equipment has already been awarded. The Parks and Maintenance Building has not gotten underway yet, and that's in there at 1.5 million. But most of her transfer is gonna happen this year. The operations, 547,000 of that operations is your funding for the outside agencies, which grew from 300,000 to 547,000.
Okay, this spreadsheet that you gave us,
Yeah,
can you walk us through this?
yeah, so, okay, so here you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different applicants that applied to the hot board back in, they would apply in March, right? Applied in March and then the board reviewed it in April, May. Yeah, so you have the history folks, the art center folks, Pack Theater, Harvest Moon Regatta, Trinity Day School, and the EMS. Your totals were the historical folks, 305,000, Art Center, 100,000, Packed, 100,000, Harvest Moon Regatta applied for
11.
11, received 11. Trinity applied for 20, received 11, and EMS applied for 30, received 20. And if you look at the historical folks, they had 1, 2, 6, they had 12.
I applied for 305,034.
Yeah, so
Next to the last page.
yeah, the historical folks had 12 applications. Event programming, what's this?
Archiving,
Yeah, archiving, restoration, preservation, that was a 77,000. It received 83% funding on that one. Their operation and facilities restoration applied for 61,905, received 49% of that one. Administrative applied for 55,000, received 33% of that number. Wooden Boat Festival applied for 14,100, got 97% funding on that one. Port A Surf Fest, 10,400 applied for, got 100% of that. Port A Days applied for 6,705, received 63% of that.
actually, that's percentages of their percent of their budget
That's the percent,
of the budget
of-
of the event, correct?
right, percent of the event. So for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
funded them 100% of their request.
yeah, right. So like for Farley Classic Golf Tournament, it's a $9,300 total operating budget. They received 9,300. Second Saturdays, it's a $3,000 event. They were awarded 1,800. That's a 60% award. Winter Lecture Series, 7,200 total operating budget. They received 7,200, so 100% on that one. And then Historic Property Award, that's a $27,200 operating budget. They received 100% of that one. So your grand total, 547,000 awarded or recommended by the hot board. That's a recommendation to you guys.
And that is
They're
what
not,
installed in the
yeah, they're
budget.
not an approving body, they're a recommending body. So it's ultimately up to you guys to award what you feel, what you deem fit.
Florence, when they applied for these different events, and I understand it was broken down per event, right? Was there any rhyme or reason to why you would, or they, these different organizations, right? Because they're all different, right? Compared to when you look at the spreadsheet, what the operating budget was versus what they requested. Like, I guess, most of these on the Papaha were, 800% of the cost, right? The coverage. Some of them were 50%, 116% or whatever. But like the Art Center only asked for 26% of one of their events and 62% of the cost of the other. PACT requested 38% of their total operating budget. Harvest Memory Grotto requested 9% of theirs, Trinity 66% and EMS 60%. Was there any in the actual application format that explains why they just be so different? I mean, I guess that's not it's just what they asked for based on.
Yep, it's just a calculation I purely provided that you're seeing there for basically request amount compared to their operating budget amount for that event, program, or facility. So that was, they're choosing, right now, we don't have anything in the policy stating, some sort of cap amount or percentage
Or
amount.
something.
I mean,
like
did the
that.
board look at it and base it on heads and beds or no? Doesn't look like it.
The hot board?
Yeah,
Did they? I don't think they talked about heads and beds.
We discussed quite a bit. It's kind of been a while, but if your question is why were they awarded the amount that they were awarded?
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was a calculation method or something based on that, like but the board came up with, right?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, there was a lot of discussion.
yeah, like the EMS event, that's an event that brings in 400 or 500 people. Every one of them's in a hotel room for 4 or 5 nights, and they got a 60% hit, whereas I guarantee some of these other ones aren't putting 500, 400 people in, bringing 400 people in Port A for 4 nights. No way.
I just sat in some of those meetings and they seemed like the board did discuss, if they were bringing people in or not.
We need to discuss if they were bringing people in. It's a requirement. Did they have the stats? I don't remember that they had stats.
Some people brought different things, of course, policy does show state bring us a budget, we want to see a breakdown of, how you're going to use this funding. But a lot of this too is for the follow-up report, whether they did or didn't bring information. I really did. We gave a lot of detailed instruction on what we're requiring for the follow-up. We're wanting to see a lot of information, or otherwise the warning is you're not going to get funded next year. At least that's the recommendation. I'm not a voting member.
Based on what, heads and beds?
What you're asking, what makes a successful event?
Yeah.
It certainly is. Yeah, there's a 2-step process. You must prove up that you are putting heads and beds first. And then after that, then there are the 9 categorical
Right.
eligible categories that state outlines.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm just the Historical Association, Art Center, and PACT all got 100% of what they asked for, as did Harvest Moon Regatta. Trinity Day School asked for 20, which was 66% of their operating budget, but only got awarded 11. And then the EMS asked for 30, which was 60% of their advertising costs, and only got awarded 20. So I guess I was just trying to figure out if there was any kind of rhyme or reason to the.
Do you remember when they were talking about that and Victoria Stewart had something, she had some kind of calculation, how she came up with those numbers? Do you remember that? You remember down there, were you here? Ashley, do you remember
She.
her saying something?
Calculation.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was marketing, and it was advertising, a lot of them were going
Oh.
for advertising. Remember, they
That's what it
project
was.
And others like us went for a broader spectrum of the service.
That's what it was.
Art Center did ask for 125,
Oh, that's for 125.
Oh,
even 100.
well, it doesn't say that up
The-
here. It
the-
says ask was
The
100.
second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
because
they
the
had a
one,
second
yes, I'm so sorry.
promotion.
Yes. Which was for advertising, but is that,
Oh,
they're
they-
getting no
oh,
money for advertising? Because they're only getting 100 and reporting this recommendation, and it looks like that all might be going to the operating expense.
Some were allocated application by application like ours. And some, they ended up cutting it a little or saying just use it as you were gonna use it. So it was different for each organization.
Yeah.
How the recommendations came in. We were just the last one and ours was left in our categories.
Okay, so ultimately, if we decide that we want to do obviously what was recommended, then it would all stay in, I mean, EMS could use $20,000 for advertising. Turkey Trot could use $11,000 for advertising. Bay Access Sailing, Harvester got $11,000 for advertising. PAC
Or
could
event,
use,
event expenses. That's what I have.
oh, I'm sorry, expenses. PAC could use $100,000 for productions and marketing. And then the Art Center could use $100,000 for payroll costs because they're only getting $100,000. That's the part that I can't determine. If they're only recommended to get awarded 100 and we say, okay, great, then is it 100 for just payroll costs? Because the advertising, I can't figure out what was what on this sheet. And
On the
then,
advertising, they requested 25 and received,
but it doesn't say what
they didn't receive it.
yeah, I'm assuming they didn't receive it. I don't know.
I think the board, from memory, it's been a while, but I thought that the board, because we had the applicants come up one at a time. Per agenda, it's agenda item, right? So, you had Art Center, then you'd have PAC, right? So they take a vote. Art Center presented on both items at the same time. When it came down to the vote, I think they just lump summed it and said, we're gonna give you 100.
They're recommending that they receive 100. So if we say we agree, I mean, again, it's all about the process afterwards, right? If the rules are that we say, okay, we're going to give you X and you're required to be audited based on what we gave you, then I think that we need to be specific about that, correct? I mean, it'll be a no-brainer for the ones that don't have multiple categories, but like for Papaha, I mean, if we say we're going to give you $305,000, but you have to spend it directly in these categories for which you applied, great. But if, like the Art Center, I mean,
Yeah, the Art Center seems to be the only one that's combined.
so I think, I mean, is it our,
Yeah,
I would
it
think
is.
it would be our duty to
They can
tell
go
them
through a discussion
specifically
if they
so that they know how to come back with their audit
Yeah.
in the back. And then again, if we want, I mean, I'm not suggesting this, but if we say, okay, well, we want to give Papaha, $250,000 instead of 305, then do we have to come back and say, well, we're going to give you X per section?
We can put stuff like that in a policy, how we want to fund these things. We can do it lump sum or one by one by one. It's just not in there detailed, but we can certainly add that from your direction tonight. But also, for the follow-up that's going to be coming, we want to see a follow-up report on each and every one of these applications. And they do need to give a detailed breakdown.
But if we choose not to award one of them, and again, I'm not saying that, and I'm trying to go through the process, right? It's a new process. So we need to refine the process and know what we're doing, not only for this year, but for next year and for the follow-up. So if we say, well, we don't want to give you anything for the Wooden Boat Festival, They don't have to follow up on that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, we're expecting to see for the Art Center a follow-up on two different things. One for the request for the facility payroll costs, and then another one for advertising for your event. I forget which event it was particularly, but I do have, that's why I brought the folders, the applications are in here. I do have all the materials in front of me, but certainly we will go through all that again when it's time for the post follow-up. And I will get familiar with the video or the recording of the meeting before we get into that, because we did give them a lot of detailed instructions on what we're expecting for the follow-up.
Right, that's an 80% increase over last year.
And a decrease in hotel motel tax.
And a
Follow-up.
decrease.
And some cities just say, look, we fund you, show us your budget, your financials, and with our hotel tax, everybody gets 10%, and that's it. That way you're able to service more. I mean, it started out with 3, it's doubled now. They did say, once we open the floodgates, well, it doesn't make the hotel motel tax go up a whole lot. Now we're just having to cut it down by more and more people. Like with Trinity Day School, we're giving them $20,000.
No, we're giving them 11.
11. My question is, what does that event raise for the day school? They asked for 30. If the event only raises 25,000 for the day school and we gave you 30, stop going through just write a check for $30,000 from hotel motel tax to a day school. I mean, you don't do that. You can't use it for that,
Mhm.
but it should
Yeah,
be
we're,
things
yeah.
to enhance this. Or it's just a flat number percentage so that everybody can program it. The city can program it. The organizations that come in program it.
Well, when word gets out that you guys are funding events to 100%, 97 and
Everybody's gonna have
83, I tell you what, next year,
Right.
you're gonna get smoked.
And that's just gonna take away from,
But don't they have to prove they put heads in beds?
Well,
But it's an
Everybody-
audit.
I mean,
Pray
I mean-
Sandfest doesn't show up.
what?
But I mean, for,
You're
yes.
gonna give them
You,
100%?
you do
I
have
do a lot for Sandfest though too.
Who does?
I mean, you do all the beach stuff and
Yeah, but-
moving all the sand.
Yeah.
I mean, they get a lot of stuff too that way.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the number is, but 547 is too much for me.
Well, I think you have to look at
I don't know
where,
how you figured that.
if we were gonna look at an estimated fund balance at the end of 2025, another 10 or 11 million dollars, then, I think we could continue funding like we've had in the past when we've had these excesses, but we're gonna go from being in excess of $11 million down to just under 3 because of the projects that we have that are truly income producing facilities for the city.
Yeah, this will be the last year you can fund like this.
I mean, for a while and,
Yeah.
until we do, we build back up or something, but I think it's just, we can't give $540,000 if all we're gonna end up with at the end of the year is $2 million or $3 million every year, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
you're
just, you
doubling.
can't,
You doubled from what you were 2 years ago to the Art Center. And
Impact.
Pact 3 years ago, you doubled. 1 year you gave Historical Association 300,000, but that was for construction specifically.
Right.
So you've doubled, more than doubled what you gave them this year. And then your 3 new organizations.
the 4-day surf fest. do we bring people in from out of town, or is that a local event for local people?
That's one thing we asked each and every one of these applicants. How are you planning to prove up that these are not locals? Because this, to meet the heads and beds, they have to be a tourist, which is defined from someone outside the region who's most likely going to be staying overnight here, benefiting the
Has to
hotel.
generate a hotel motel tax.
Correct.
Winter Texans do not generate a hotel motel tax, because over 30 days, you do not pay hotel motel tax. Our Port Aransas stays bring in people from outside. And what I'm trying to do is, I understand the advertising and the promotion. I got it. But are these things that we just want to do? Or are these things truly that bring people into heads and beds?
I think that's
The Wooden Boat Festival, I think people probably do come from out of town. Because not all the boats there are boats built by people here. Correct? People bring their boats back. Yeah, so I mean, they're coming back. So I understand that festival.
the committee was set up, and this is a process. And this is
Yeah.
our first round of going through this process.
Yeah.
And so there's gonna be some checks and balances, there's gonna be some learning curves.
Mhm.
I will tell you, just from our management standpoint, we're any of these, we volunteer to advertise, market these events on through our businesses, and we're promoting it as to everybody and anybody. When we're hopeful that tourists, locals, people that are here on the island go to the events. And now that we can get heads there, it sounds like these entities are gonna start doing their, letting us know that. I think at this time, a year from now, we should have a good idea of how this process is going. It's not gonna be perfect, take some adjustments, but I think whatever these entities will present us, we'll start getting some data, and then we just start working from that. Now, yeah, the dollar amount, I get it, and if we're just doing numbers and talking about the times we're in, so just looking at not knowing everything with the numbers, but you take in the, what was, Papa 305, the 100 for the Art Center, the PAC 100, Bay Access Foundation 11, Trinity Day 11, and EMS 20%. That's 547. You break those percentages out of that 547. We did 300 last year. And looking like everything's about 5% down, so you knock 5% off of that, say 285. Break it out by those percentages. And then it breaks the number. It's not right or wrong or indifferent. I'm just making them a process. So then you're looking at Papa going from 305 to 158. I'm just rounding up. Art Center, going from 100 to 52. PAC from 100 to 52. Bay Access Foundation 11 to 5,700. Trinity Day School from 11 to 5,700, and EMS department from 20 to 10. Then that all comes back to the 285. Not right or wrong or indifferent, but that's
Ratioing it out to what we have.
right. Based on what we asked the committee to do to try to put a process together and the sign of the times and what we're all going through right now. That's just a platform of trying to come up with some type of something we can look back a year from now and go, what did we do? How did we do it? And where did we come up with it?
Well, and that's what we wanted last year, right? When we asked for a process, we wanted a process so that we wouldn't just have general asks, right? And so I appreciate all the hard work, mostly by the applicants who had to do all the hard work. But I do think we do need to continue to refine the process, because it could get, next year's hotel motel could be even less, or who knows, right? But if it's more, then, we can make that adjustment. I'm just looking at these budgeted fund balances and all the other things and projects that we have from a city standpoint that we have to fund, because that's how they get funded, right? And so I think, yeah, we need to look hard at the number and make sure that's what we want to do. And I appreciate you, Chuck, you coming up with a mathematical model. Because I think that's one of the things, like I said, we wanted to try to be a little more analytical about it based on the amount of money we have in the budget and in the hot tax collections. So it wouldn't be more of an emotional decision, you know, we could try to make more of a business decision.
It was emotional. We
Do it all.
ask them.
Give it all.
Tell them to ask for more,
Yeah.
cause I got some ideas. But
Yeah.
we don't get to do that. And I do think it's somewhere down the line, it's gotta be a percentage of whatever the event is. So that if somebody comes up with a $400,000 event, we're not giving you 66% to roll the dice. I mean, but you'll be able to give to more and help out and let them do their thing.
Well, and I do think what we award any applicant needs to lean very heavy on their advertising costs, you know, the event expense, you know, not payroll and operational funding.
Yeah, there's different categories with the, you know, the statutes for the 9, but yeah, you could give a percentage across the board, all 9, or say this category is this percentage, that category is this percentage. Another thought is, do you do it per applicant instead of application?
What, like a cap?
Yeah. Or,
Or an overall cap?
Which is kind of what Chuck was alluding to, taking an overall cap of last year and then prorating it by the percent that was awarded to them by the committee.
But aren't we responsible for saying what it goes to? They're responsible for requesting. We say it's going to advertisement as opposed to a cap for the operations of an organization.
If we want the
I mean,
audit to work, yeah.
But by the statute.
Yeah.
yeah,
It can only be used for this, this, and this.
every one of these you see on here did pass, the whole gambit. we
And
took.
history has a little bit of different
Sure.
than other advertising, than the other events. They have some other statutes that can be funded.
Another thought too, you know, if we're talking policy, evolution, you know, which it is, because it's a new policy. I think it's a great policy, but if you want to, you know, ask, is it more liberal or is it more conservative? I'd say it's more liberal. I mean, we're funding straight up, not asking for receipts and then pay you back, you know, as a reimbursement. We don't have any cap amounts. There's a couple different things in there. But if you are going to look at a percentage amount, I don't know if there's a thought of, you know, with time, that percentage going down with each year, right? So there are monies left over to encourage new events, to start filling the calendars, because we want people to find what days are completely open in these off seasons and start filling those calendar dates for our lodging industry. We want to fill that up. So it's just a
Well, yeah,
thought.
and you want to award successful events that get stronger and more popular versus just flat out funding an event that's just static year after year. You know, you want to weed out the losers, promote the winners.
Right.
And then the winners should be getting better run every year to where you're weaning them off the money and they don't need it as much because they have applicants that are paying fees to enter the event or participate. And so as they get better, their fees should get better. And so, you know, you should see the number do this. And then that opened space up for that new barbecue competition that we haven't seen in 15 years. That is a brand new startup, and they need a little bit more oomph and more help at the beginning, their first year. And so that's what you want to see. You want to see these programs getting better and weaning them off. And then the new startups, same thing, you know, they get their more money at the beginning, and then they need to get more successful, because you don't want to, you don't want to keep funding the loser project or event that's not doing its job and putting heads in beds. So that's the kind of ultimate view of this program from 30,000 feet is that process right
And
there.
honestly, no one should be upset at that, because even if you did have an event right now, right? You say, well, I don't want that for this other, well, no one is stopping anyone from putting in another application with another new event. You know, even existing people that are on this paper now can go ahead and create more events, right? Let's just get the calendar filled and help these lodging entities.
Well, I don't know how y'all want to do it, if you have any thoughts, but we need to probably give Darla some direction. So we know what to do for that number.
And Chuck, your thought is leave it at whatever the percentages they are, or go through the events and say, yes, I think that works. Yes, that does create heads and beds. No, it doesn't.
Well, I guess the big yes is come up with a dollar amount. Thing is justifiable. And then, yes, and then,
Right.
I would think there was a criteria that established these numbers by the committee and the groups.
Everything went through the policy. The policy and their justification for the amounts, you know, I can't really recall exactly off the top of my head at this point why they chose what they chose. But in the policy, there is no set language for calculate a certain way. There's no cap amount or anything like that. We take them through the plethora of questions to make sure that they meet eligibility by the statute. And that they understand all the things that we're requesting of them. And all the follow-up that we're expecting and budgeting and all this sort of a thing. But we have nothing set in stone as far as, is this a blank check process or not? That's not, there's no language for that at this point.
I like how you did this. Darla do this.
No, Lawrence did it.
Lawrence.
It's Lawrence's spreadsheet.
So the percentages you see on there, just FYI, or requested amounts versus their operating budget, not necessarily what they were funded. You know, they were funded at the very bottom of the spreadsheet.
So what would be the percent?
Well, recommended funding.
Okay, so I think obviously this
285.
this
number
is
you
always
gave.
a hard decision, because I think we all agree that we would like to give all these organizations as much money as possible to help them, right? Because I think we all feel like they're worthy organizations. They do a lot for the community and for bringing heads in beds. I think the process is what we always struggle with, right? How do we arrive at the number and what the process is? We gave 305 last year, correct? 300 even?
300 even.
The total is 547 this year. The first question I think we need to answer is, are y'all as a council comfortable giving 547, knowing what our budget is?
No.
Okay. All right, we've established that. We're getting somewhere. Okay, so given that, if we're not comfortable with 547, do you guys want to say that you're comfortable with another number? Or do you want to try to drill it down into a percentage? Or do you want to say, I'm comfortable with what was awarded to X, Y, and Z, however, you know, not one? That needs to be the next question, because if you're going to cut from 547 to 300 or 400 or whatever that number is, we need to kind of know that is. So, I guess what is the next, I mean, because if you wanted to say, I'm good with Papaha, you know, I'm good with Harvest Moon and I'm good with EMS, but not these, I mean, y'all kind of what y'all's
But it,
feeling.
like, to get to
how
Chuck's
did we
number,
get-
you would have to drop what, 47%?
48%.
48% across the
Right, it was
board.
48%. You had it down because you took 300,000 by the amount we're down, which was what, 5%, you said?
Yeah, so what, I just took 300,000 less 5%, so knocked it down 15 grand, that took it to 285.
Right.
And then based on the totals that were
Prorated.
presented on the bottom of the
Item.
percentages, which was 56 to Papa, Art Center was 18, PAC 18, Bay Access 2, Trinity Day School 2, and the EMS Department 4. Take that 285 number, time those percentages, and just had that amount broke out about the 285.
Yeah, but you know, the Trinity and the other two asked for more and they got less than what they were asking. And then, I think the rest, I don't know, what did the Art Center ask for?
125.
Okay. And then, theater,
Ask for
100.
okay.
See, I would have thought hotel motel tax example. It's $120,000 to put on the Harvest Moon Regatta, or so they say. And they want to promote it and they're asking for 11,000 for event expenses to do advertising, print, and get people here. We would want more people to bring events here and then help them with the advertising to get it in. Now, do they put heads in beds to the tune of $11,000? I don't know. I don't know if they're sleeping on their sailboats or people come in a couple days ahead of time and stay and party, but
So that event, they keep everybody on site pretty much. They
Okay.
Bring in all these caterers from out of town,
okay,
Mhm.
coming in to cater their event.
okay.
And I would say the majority of them probably sleep on their boat.
Do people
Not all of
drive
them.
in like they're, I mean, they know the sailing people, but do the families?
Yeah, they have a
and
lot
the
of
support
families that
people-
drive in.
Yeah.
See, those are the questions we would ask on an event. If 100 people are sailing on a boat, where do they sleep?
What they did ask them in these meetings, they did ask them, they said they bring in people that work the event early and they stay in hotels and houses and everything. They did ask all those questions at those meetings.
And for that, we're giving them $11,000 to help promote their event, not 120,
No, they didn't
but
ask.
they're bringing, it's that small advertising percentage.
Right, and then, in theory, there should be other economic development spillover, right? People going to restaurants, gas usage, shopping, dining.
Except it's hot tax. We have to go back to that
Right.
goofy rule that
But
it's for the hotel and lodging
100
people
100%.
and
But
FDRs.
if it is
I like
truly
your theory.
like they're supposed to be out of towners coming here and staying here, you would think.
Yes,
They're also generating other income for the city.
that's the byproduct,
Yeah.
but that's not what the policy is. I mean, that's not what the statute's for.
But they didn't request 120, they requested less than that, correct?
They requested 11.
Yeah,
Okay. On their budget of 120.
yeah, they requested less.
That part of the problem is they went off of this budget. But the problem is like with us, we're brand new as far as asking, and the budget, part of the things that we want the money for is to create a larger budget. I mean, we've
Right.
never had advertising, so now we're gonna have it. So technically, you would add that 20 or 30,000 onto the overall budget. But instead it was like, what did y'all spend last year? And so, and it's the same thing whenever they cut it. So they went from 30 to 20 on us, so that's a 33% decrease on the Park Center, 125 to 100. So I mean, 20% decrease. So it's like, what caused their decrease to be less or more? There really is no wrong with it. I mean, I think at some point you just say, hey, we're gonna give away, what are y'all comfortable with giving away, 400,000, 300,000, whatever the case is, and then you go plus and minus on the hot tax each year, and that fund changes with the hot tax. And then you just distribute that money.
Well,
however
yeah.
you feel.
And they were looking at the numbers they had in front of them, which I didn't see, I was just sitting in the meeting listening, and so they were coming up with these numbers. Victoria kept,
Yeah.
she had a reason, I think it was the advertising and different things.
So you can use the money to not only start a new event, but also expand, your existing, and I think that's probably what you have also, right? People are gonna start doing all
Yeah,
these advertisements and things that they couldn't afford. So I don't know if you want me to tell you the 9 categories again. We don't need to go into the weeds.
Okay, so if we're not doing 547, are y'all comfortable with using some kind of formula like Chuck was suggesting based off of what we do have on an estimated hotel motel tax collection? So 285, 300, and then trying to determine how much each event would get. I mean, I understand if we go to the formula based on what they were awarded last year, that would make sense for Papaha Art Center and PAC, but then you're taking the rest of the money and you're taking away from these other organizations that didn't even get money last year. Does that make sense? So you're almost
Right.
cutting them and they've already been cut once. So I don't know that
Yeah,
that
that's what
math
I was
works.
saying.
Yeah.
So you asked for 50 originally and you got 30, correct? Huh? You asked for 30
Got 20.
and you got 20.
And that's for
Oh,
promoting and
I was looking-
advertising the event.
Correct. It's like,
Out there, wherever you go, wherever you send it.
So most cities just do a flat cap amount, 5,000, 10,000,
Yeah.
period. That's mainly what you see. But if you consider a percentage, I mean, I think the only way you could consider a percentage is the way it's laid out now. What is your operating cost for your event? We are only looking to do X of that.
They've already been cut, so we just need to adjust these.
But one thing I'd like to remind the board, I know y'all know this, but whatever the reasoning is or justification done tonight, you should probably consider that would be a future adoption into the policy, right? You don't want to have different considerations each time we do this.
Right. Yeah. No, we need to be consistent.
Last year. 5%. Put the 3 5% down from the insurance, put the others 5% down from the going to where, then it goes on Chuck's methodology.
What I did is I took
Put the-
the math of the 285 in the top three, so that'd be Papa at 158. And this isn't just numbers. Art Center at 52, and this is just around PAC 52. Bay Access, keep at 11. Trinity Day School at 11. And EMS Department at 20. All those total 305, 117.
Okay. But the decline in hot tax wasn't 50%, right? And so you're cutting the
He's
art.
cutting 5% of what you awarded this year.
5% of
was what his
75, it's not
methodology was.
52.
I was just thinking that.
But he was just
we're all
trying to
down
come up with a-
5%.
Oh, yeah.
For the year.
Okay, but if
I
you
took
took,
the 300 less 5%, came with that 285.
right. But, okay, I was just thinking,
So then
And
if you
apply
did
what
it,
if you said,
Yes.
we're gonna award you 5% less than we awarded you last year for
You
the
did
3
not.
organizations we already awarded.
right,
And then the new 3 organizations, we could leave at that amount or give them some other
right.
amount. What would that be? What would the math be on that?
You would
'Cause-
have 150
150.
times 0.95 is 142.5 to Papaha. Papaha. I used to always say it that way.
I would just go to what we did last year and keep the other 3 of what we did.
Right, you could do that. I mean, that.
You'd have
You're
71,250.
giving last year.
You'd have 71,250 for Art Center and for Community Theater.
How much?
71,250 is a 5% decrease. And then your other 3, if you're gonna do 5% less, you would have 10,450 for Harvest Moon, and for Day School and EMS would be 19,000.
And that would be a total of 327,425 is what I came up with quick math. Is that correct?
Let me see, I didn't put them all in.
Well, no, I know.
142.15.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the.
324.9.
Okay, 324.9. So that would be giving more, obviously, than what we gave last year. So if you wanted to stay within that 285. You'd have to cut the other three. So get significantly more, so. And again, it doesn't, it, if you try to do the math that way, doesn't seem fair to penalize an organization who only asked for 9% of their total operating budget compared to one that asked for, whatever, 100 or 60 or 50 or 42 or 26 or, it's just painful trying to go through a process when it's new. But I mean, the bottom line is, I don't think we can afford to give $547,000. And we agreed to that. So
Got one thing then.
what's the number? So if y'all want to stay at the 285 number, which again falls in line with what our hotel motel tax collections, we estimate them to be, then how do you want to do it? Because then you're giving basically, if it's 285. You're giving. Yeah, you're giving half of it to Papaha and then splitting up the rest. Which is pretty much what we did last year. Of the 300, we gave half to Papaha and then the other two got the rest. Just you have 3 more applicants this year. So how do you, who gets the deduction to be able to give some to everybody? Because that's what wasn't determined. It's not like in the application process, any one of them was deemed more worthy than the other, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, they're different categorical applications, they're all different, honestly.
Well, and I think that's why historically more has been given to Papaha because of the extra boxes they check being a historical, right.
They're statutorily allowed to expense on very broad things, like you see kind of like salaries and operations and all this sort of a thing where kind of like
I didn't think arts were.
EMS was like they're wanting advertising only, right?
This
They
is
can't
true.
qualify for anything else.
I didn't think arts qualified for payroll.
Yeah.
Arts and historical do.
Okay.
Calculators are going.
Yeah.
Going.
I think the only other thing you can probably consider is, the board could just say, we're gonna make a designated grant line item. And this is how much we're putting in it. I don't know if you want to say it's first come, first serve, or if we think we're gonna have 10 this year, we're gonna designate that line item up by tenths. That's all that's available as an example.
Yeah, but then it depends what it is. I mean, you have the certain categories that are get a certain percentage of.
And then,
Those were some long meetings
no.
and lots of them. I mean, I went through
Well,
details
and-
and
They did what
details.
they were very good.
And
They
it's,
worked hard.
and it's hard, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, you don't know what your collections are gonna be. You're doing it in
No,
the spring
exactly.
before your peak season and
So,
I mean, it seems
What'd you
great
come up with, chicken?
if you assume that collections will be high.
And then I'll look at the other
So-
demands.
Right, and they don't know, exactly. They don't know what else is being pulled from the same pot.
okay, so. What I did. Okay, so the Harvest Moon request was 11 grand, correct? That was their ask.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that their max, I'm just doing some math. I've come up with a number with Papa based on a percentage. Originally around 56%, and then I took the 11,000 because that was what the Harvest had asked for. And then the rest of it, I took that, whatever that remainder amount divided by 4, and that comes roughly around 29 grand a piece. And so looking at, if this is right, nothing's right, it's, PAFA would be just over 158,000, the Art Center would be 29. The PAC 29. Trinity 29, they're asked, and they're asked for around 30. And then EMS would be 29.
I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
Yeah.
Are you
that-
saying percentage of their request or that you would give them 29?
29.
Give
So
them
then that
29?
puts
Yeah,
them
so
on-
the way the
that
numbers
puts them
came
at-
out, my numbers come out with PAFA getting 158,912. Art Center getting 29,000, PAC getting 29,000, Trinity 29,000, the Bay Access 11, and EMS Department 29.
So Papa dropped 50%, but PAC and the Art Center dropped 75.
And Trinity went up 50%.
Yeah, well, see, then they almost got 100% Trinity.
I know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we don't want to give them more than they
How
asked
much
for.
do you rate?
Yeah.
Give more.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I thought you were saying you would give them 29,000.
that's what he said. And they asked for 30.
Right, so it's one less than that.
And you know how many of those people on a turkey trot are from out of town?
Like 70%.
That's right.
And not in their own secondary homes but we don't know if they're in their secondary.
Well, it's a
They
big,
don't
there's a
know.
huge corpus contingency that does that race.
Okay.
That they're not staying there.
Okay.
They're out of towners, but they're not
They don't spend the
overnighters.
night.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the percentages or the amounts that were awarded by the committee for Harvest Moon Regatta, Turkey Trot, and the EMS.
Yeah.
I just think the struggle is gonna be then if we allocate $42,000 to those three, those three organizations. If we stick to 285, then we have 243 left for the other three. So how do you split that up evenly or not evenly or appropriately percentage wise, right? And so you could effectively, if you wanted to stay at 285, you could give Papa Hop, say, what we gave them last year, which is about 50% of their requests. And then you would have 108 left for the two Art Center and PAC. And then you could decide, of that. Or you could give more, right? You could give up to 300. I mean, you could play around the numbers, that's our that's our ask, but, because we were 150, 75 and 75.
Yeah.
So if you stayed at
Okay.
that,
And then that's 300 and then add the other
yeah,
362.
42.
Is it 42?
It'd be 342 total.
Yeah, then you'll be
If
at
you kept them at
342.
what you funded last year and then
Right.
the additional 3, you'd be at 342 versus 300.
Right, so you're still giving more than you gave last year.
But 205,000 less
But
than
you have
what's in the
3
budget.
extra. You have 3 extra people, but you're giving, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
so.
That.
You could give, if you wanted to take the 285, which is the 5% down from what we gave last year based on hotel motel tax. You could divide that between the 3 organizations who got something last year. So then Papaha would get around 143, Art Center would get around 71, and PAC would get around 71. These are rough numbers, right? That would be giving those 3 organizations the 285, which was the decline from hotel motel. Then again, because you have 3 new organizations and there's no precedent set from last year, you could again take hot tax of 42,000 and give them that. And that would get you to 324, 325.
Yeah, which is just $4. $7 there, $4 there.
Yeah, I mean,
get it.
basically you're.
No, I get it.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's giving a little less than you gave the 3 last year because the decline of hotel motel tax, but then you're letting the 3 new ones prove themselves based on what the hot tax board suggested they receive. Right, and then they go through the audit process, everyone goes through the audit process, and then you figure out moving forward kind of what that is, and then maybe next year, you know, you do try to better define and drill down where you're gonna be hot tax wise. In April. Maybe even push the process a little closer to May,
It's not possible.
no.
Because you don't know
Delayed.
the summer.
No, I know you don't know the summer, but I mean,
Which-
We call on a policy for a meeting date. And I think it's only open for like a month or something like that.
yeah. Any other suggestions?
Nothing
No,
else?
no. You gotta get to a number. So Darla can put it in the book.
I don't know. Last thing I can think of is, what did we fund last year? Nice amount. So maybe we can take a median. Just say that's a cap amount moving forward. It's very high dollar values. I mean, I think most people would flip out of $50,000. To me, that's still a lot of money.
The 2 suggestions were to do a 5% decrease to the 3 that were funded last year on their last year funding amount and keep the 3 at the same, or to take a 5% decrease on the total and then pro rata those out by what was given. And who likes what?
Like Wendy was saying, so the 285, then that means pop, if are taken, so the top 3 pop, the 3 from a year ago, pop up the Art Center and PAC, pop up being the higher amount, about 143, and then Art Center and PAC each get 71K apiece, those 3 together total the 285, and then 11,000 to the Bay Access, the Trinity, 11 and then the EMS DEP grant, so that would be the,
Mhm.
or is that, am I good? And then, so that would be 327 total.
Yeah.
That'd be based on, I think what I heard.
And then maybe we work on better refining the process so that it seems.
It'll get better. This is the first.
Lawrence is looking like, he went through a lot with that.
This is
there,
on YouTube.
And
We
so
can watch
did
it again.
everybody else.
Again, it's a new process and it's a good process. It's just right now, we don't have anything in there setting a value, right? So if we can figure out what the board's direction is at this juncture, whatever this decisioning, this methodology is, I need to somehow get it in language and add it to the policy.
Yeah, just to make it simpler.
Here's the thing. A lot of stuff qualifies when you look at state law, art, history, events. Your number this number is going to keep growing. It's going to be 750,000 next year. So there is really no, if you use a mathematical formula, it's just going to increase, right? It's always going to increase unless you talk caps.
On your entire hotel motel
Yeah.
tax collection.
Yeah, you just cap it and then it's divvied out.
And then you start not funding particular events.
Or everyone's percentage gets smaller. And then you're going to start whittling it down to where it is truly covering advertising and small programming funding, not 100% of a program, 10% of a program.
Yeah, because.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have one fishing tournament on this. Not one.
Or like you said, an organization like Sandfest who
Yeah.
really brings in,
Till that retro series comes in and that's
a lot of
for
money.
help on their advertising.
And other cities have,
What's that?
other cities have promoted breakfast series as one of the events they advertise. We
Well,
did
they
it
used to ask,
self-hydrating
they
as
used
well.
to ask for money from the city a long time ago, for tents and stuff like that.
Well, we would just
Once
direct
we
them
had
over to
to-
the chamber.
Yeah.
And they still help a lot with a lot of those organizations.
Yeah, and the
in
chamber's still
providing
doing
stuff.
that, they're still. But yeah, I mean, we don't have one fishing tournament on there.
Isn't that private ownership, the
What's that?
fishing tournaments, they're all private, they're not 501c3.
No, a lot of them are
That's true.
501c3.
You don't have to be 501c3 to get this.
Mm-mm.
I understand, but that's big difference.
I think it depends probably on the organization. Some are, some aren't, right? I mean, but you're right. There are a lot of ones that are for profit,
Mhm.
Yeah, but ultimately it's who's putting the
Most
heads
of
of
'em.
beds.
No, sure. I mean,
Anyone could put in an application. Don't even need to be in the city limits, honestly.
and that could be something
If
that
it does.
going forward,
You don't have to.
going forward on the application process, we could ask the committee to put more emphasis on the organizations that are truly 501c3s, if that's what we want, right? Because 501c3s, their goal is not to make a profit. And for me, I don't want the city giving tax dollars to a for-profit event. That's not fair, right? I mean, we shouldn't be doing that. I'm not saying we have, but they technically could probably apply, and they would put heads in beds, but we need to probably make that some kind of requirement and or,
I agree.
stipulation.
501c3s. Basically proving up that you are 501c3 to be
Well,
an applicant.
Or,
applicant.
yeah, or that you're truly a nonprofit organization and not a for-profit organization coming to just put a bunch of money to your bottom line. So
I don't know if that's legal.
I think, we can go
Check it
more
out.
restrictive than this, state law. We have that option. We just have to get consensus and a vote and add it in.
Okay, so for we can again tweak this until September 12th. But for now, we agree that we're not gonna keep the 547 in there. We're looking at more like 325, 320, 324, 322. What did it come up to? Mr. Math over there?
327 by the
327.
methodology that you had, a 5% decrease to the three organizations from the. prior
Could you
year.
read me the
And
amounts
the
one more
other
time for
three, What
each?
they were.
Okay, HAFA would be 143,000.
Thousand?
Art Center would be 71,000. The PAC Theater would be 71,000. Bay Access Foundation, 11,000. The Trinity Day School, 11,000. And the EMS Department, 20. And all that would total 327.
Yeah, that's basically, I had 250. I had 71, 250, 71, 250, and 142.5.
Yes,
Is the 5% down,
Right.
but yeah,
close enough.
right, it comes.
Thank you, sir.
It's funny, we only had the three for the longest time.
Well, sounds like we're past that, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, thank y'all.
So is that what we think we want? 327?
are we drilling down with that?
71 or 71, 250 and 142.5 and 143.
Well, if you want to make it mathematically accurate to the 5% decline, then you
Then it's
probably.
be the
yeah,
142.5.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 142.5, 71, 250. And the other three at what the committee approved.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make those changes. Okay, so that gets you through hotel motel tax special. I don't think there's anything else in there because the other operational things are transfers or things that are already committed. The facility fund has in it the expansion for the civic center and the community center remodel to the tune of 720,000.
And that's gonna basically break that balance.
Yes, it will break that balance. Mhm.
Yeah.
It will. It brings it down to like 69,000. And if the bids come in higher for then we'd have to increase the transfer from Hunter Matcha Special if the bids came in higher for the Civic Center expansion.
Okay.
But we don't know that till we bid it out. Could be less.
Let's hope for less.
Less is nice. Airport fund, doesn't really, it has looking for that grant opportunity, but the paving really does not have the money. We do not have the money to do the paving without finding a grant opportunity for that. Otherwise, it's operational expenses. Beach fund has in it the beach access road, the lifeguard building, the transfers that have been there to support the general fund for patrolling efforts and EMS and fire efforts when they're called onto the beach. We track those numbers and reimburse the general fund for that. So I don't really see any changes there by anyone. Speak up if you do. Okay, the harbor does not have much in capital with the things that we have finished this year. We have the lights that needed to be changed out for the Harbor Master project have been ordered. They're expected to be shipped around September 15th, and that change order, the actual labor is budgeted in there to do next year. And the money to repave and restripe the ramp parking area is in there. Impact fees zone 1, drainage impact fees are going to start being collected. Impact fees zone 1 is going down because those are based on building permit values. Consequently, we do not have as much to pay for the 11th Street bond as we have had in prior years. That did also affect your tax rate because it had to be made up at the debt service. So it you kind of got to shift from operations into the debt service. And we're estimating next year that continues to not grow, because building permits in that area are not growing.
There's no there.
Impact fee zone 2 is the amount for your Cinnamon Shores, south of the Cinnamon Shores north border. And it's going to pay your debt on the beach access road bond. Construction fund, I talked about earlier, 14 million we're finishing out the 23 bond, 14 million for the rec center, 9 million going towards the fire and EMS station, and the finishing up of the CDBG drainage grant. Street maintenance has the $400,000 in there for the stoplight and other operational expenses. RDC has the large capital lift, which we discussed, with a transfer of 4.6 million being required from the Hotel Motel Special for that. And not budgeting for turf or a locker room facility, because it's not hotel eligible or park eligible. It would have to be general fund. Park dedication fees has the dollars of 780,000 there if you want it for the rec center. The gas has large capital items, but as we said, we will let them know in the rate study that those are there, and a revenue bond would be needed for a redundant system, I do believe, but we will let them know that that is in the future if we would need it. Sanitation is taking in the commercial account billing, and our suggestion would be to increase a 5% upcharge for that to help the collection station stay open 7 days a week and stay full.
Upcharge to who? To
The
our track?
customer. Pardon?
We,
The commercial
dumpster.
dumpster.
So,
yes, we just raised the toters, like doubled them, right?
no,
No, we didn't touch the toters.
we didn't.
No,
Remember we said
last year.
That
No.
was,
No, commercial toters.
the commercial dumpsters?
No, commercial toters. If you're a business and you have a toter,
Oh, the commercial
it went
toters,
from 35 to 58.
it is higher
It
through
like doubled
what they're,
for commercial toters, not dumpsters.
but we have not touched those rates in our fee schedule. AE Republic did raise the cost of those, but we have not.
Okay.
We did not adjust any toter cost in several years.
Yeah.
I believe. I don't think we did commercial.
Maybe just yours.
Now, what it was is Republic, we were not billing. The commercial toters had not been identified as commercial.
Oh,
So Republic did an audit about 2 to 3 years ago, I
You owe some
believe,
money.
and said, these are commercial businesses and you're billing them
There
at the
you-
residential
there was a
rate. They
change.
have to be milled at the commercial rate that's on your fee
that
schedule.
was-
That's what happened. Yeah,
So you
because
had
they
a
were being billed at
12-year
residential rate.
You got a 12-year discount. Oh, gosh, wow.
And they did increase the rate, but we did not pass that on to the customer for any toter at this point.
So this is on dumpsters.
Mhm. And so that kind of went over fund by fund. The changes that I've made, we're going down to the no new revenue rate. And the only changes in expenditures is for the animal shelter, not putting in the entire construction cost. I changed the things in Hotel Motel Special.
And you'll rerun those and let us know on that, kind of where that comes out, right? Staying at that new revenue rate, and then I wrote it all down.
Yes, ma'am, yes.
I
I
like
gave
to
the
see
numbers, but
them.
what I'm gonna do is I'm going to change them tomorrow and I will send out an email and they will also be in your packet for the meeting next Thursday.
Okay.
that sound good?
Good job.
That's what I will do,
Okay,
but not tonight. I will do it in the morning.
That's first plan.
Astros are playing. And they were winning 6-1 last time.
any other discussion over the general budget for the proposed year? Okay, we're going to move on to item D, discussions on budget items, including but not limited to setting the tax rate, appraisal rolls, and future meeting dates. So
August
next,
22nd.
August, yes, at the meeting,
At the
Thursday,
meeting. It
regular
will be on your
scheduled meeting.
agenda for that vote.
Yes,
And then that will be when you decide, yes, we are going to stay at the no new
Right.
revenue, or we're going up to the better approval because we want to be,
because we want to
we
do more
thought of
stuff.
something else.
Yeah,
That's the
Yes.
22nd?
next
That is the
Thursday.
22nd. Next Thursday is your regular.
Week from Thursday, yeah.
Week from Thursday is
We
your
put it
regular
back
council
week.
meeting.
Remember?
Yeah.
I'm not here.
Correct.
We'll get Tanya back. She'll be really confused.
Yeah.
What?
I'll work with her.
She needs to watch YouTube. Okay, all right. So then based on what we decide there, and we've already kind of talked about that, is depending on how many future meeting dates we'll need.
Right. I mean, if there was
Right.
anything else you wanted to change, otherwise you do not need a meeting until September the 12th.
Right.
Which is a Thursday, and that would be your public hearing still required on the budget.
Right.
So your public hearing on the budget, no matter what. And final approval.
Yeah.
I do have September 9th.
Because originally we were gonna do it that Monday, but then we changed. As we were discussing the budget calendar very confusingly to Thursday, the 12th.
Mess up your flight plans. No, we didn't.
No, no.
Yay.
Okay,
I get on my calendar.
no, I know. All right, so then item 4, city council comments and items for future consideration. Happy first day of school tomorrow for those of
Yeah,
us that still have children in the public school system
and teachers.
and teachers who are married to spouses, to people who teach. 5.
RDC's at 4, but you're not on RDC, right? Correct. Okay. Because RDC will also be required to have a hearing
And approve there.
and approve theirs.
Oh, yes, right before. Okay. Okay. Yep. Any other questions, comments? We're adjourned.